Okay, yeah, so let everybody know that we're going to be recording this meeting, and I'm going to mute my side.
See. All right. Can folks hear me online?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. All right. We're working on the feedback issue here real quick.
Yeah, I think let's turn myself down.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. All right. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everybody. Apologies for the delay. We had some kind of unexpected chaos this morning trying to get into the building here, but we are all set to go. So thank you for your patience and welcome to our workshop for the 2025. So we've got a couple folks in person here in the room, and then we've got more folks online. So for folks online, I'm going to try and when we get to demonstrating stuff, I'll do my best to kind of explain what we're talking about when we get to in-person demonstration. But yeah, we will go from there. And we might actually be able to flip on the camera maybe for some of that stuff, but we can see as necessary. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get rolling on this. My name is Tim Schilling. I work with the land conveyance section of Division of Mine Land and Water. I've been working with the remote recreational cabin sites program here for a good long time. And so I'll be presenting the good portion of this staking workshop. And then additionally here in the room, we have Justin anyway. And since you're muted, I'll just, he's a very handsome gentleman, lovely beard, great remote recreational staker, staking assistant. He's so Justin's going to be one of the people you're probably going to be working with on a pretty regular basis if you're throughout the process. He resides in the Anchorage office, and I'm up in Fairbanks myself. So if there's any Fairbanks folks online, if you come into the office, you'll probably be talking to myself or one of the other Fairbanks staff. And if you're in the Anchorage area, you'll be probably dealing with Justin, Sandy, or Brandon there. But so thank you again for coming, and we'll get into it. So with this staking workshop here, oh geez, there we go. Now I can advance slides. So what we're going to be covering today is we're principally going to be going over the remote recreational cabin sites program. We'll give you a little bit of a history, into it and a background and how this is a little bit different, but we'll be walking you through how the program works, how to stake a parcel, and then all the way up through leasing and purchasing your parcel. And at the very end, we'll get into specific information about what staking areas folks or the specific information about the individual staking areas. So for here in the room, where are you folks staking at? What staking area? You don't know? Okay. Oh, Lost Creek. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. All right. And then for the folks online, if you're willing to chime in, where do we have folks staking from online?
Lost Creek for me.
Okay, perfect.
Salatna.
Salatna, all right. Okay, so we got folks from a couple different places. That's great. So yeah, we'll cover the area specific information. We're going to be talking about some of the uniqueness of those areas and how the staking rules apply as we go throughout here. So hopefully with this, the whole goal of this staking workshop is to hopefully get for you folks to get answers to your questions about how the program works. We're going to try and give you some tips and tricks behind this. Ultimately, our goal is to set you up to be as successful as possible, because our goal is, for you to get a parcel of land that you really like and that you're interested in, and for the whole process to work for you as best as it can. So this is an excellent opportunity for folks online or in person here to meet other stakers who might be staking within your area. So unfortunately, since the two of you are in two completely different areas, it's probably not going to be quite the same. But yeah, for folks, online, if you want to pop something in the chat and come back to it later, we can, hopefully, folks can meet each other eventually. Once you go through the whole process, you'll be neighbors. One of the greatest successes that we've seen through this through the staking program or the workshops is folks getting to meet each other and oftentimes collaborate and coordinate for efforts for staking a parcel. We've had folks get together and like share a charter out to an area or something like that to do it. And ultimately, many hands make light work. So, meeting with other stakers to help kind of make it a little bit easier. So with that, we'll get into the program here, and I'm going to breeze through a little bit of the introduction here on the program. But in a nutshell, the Remote Recreational Cabin Sites program was started in 2000 anyway. It ultimately replaced a couple of the older programs we had, like the Remote Parcel program, the old homesteading or staking programs that we had in the past. The key differences between this program and the other ones is that in the past, they operated much the same way, to where we had a large area opened up and folks could stake a parcel line within there. However, under the older programs, they required that the individuals go out and get their own survey for the parcel, which oftentimes proved too expensive. So the cost of the survey was more expensive than the value of the parcel. And then oftentimes folks would have difficulty in getting a surveyor follow through with that through that survey to get it completed. So in this program, once the staking is over, we batch all of those parcels together, put everybody in a lease, and then which gives that person or those folks with the parcel, the lease of the parcel gives you the sole and exclusive right to use the parcel, so you can still use it during that lease period just as if you owned it. But then we will complete the survey of it during that time. So by batching them all together, we get a much better value for it. So it's a lot cheaper for the survey. And then additionally, we can make sure that they get it done. And then additionally, the program does not have any prove-up requirements. So you're not required to build a cabin. You're not required to occupy it with any period of time, as those portions of older programs are oftentimes a bit too onerous for folks to follow through with that. So you've already been through the first part of the process, but the way it works, so folks apply to stake a parcel, and if we have more applications than we have authorizations, we hold a drawing to determine who gets the stake. So that part's been completed, and so we have both the winners and alternates selected, and we'll get into kind of the winner and alternates and how that kind of works for staking and the staking periods once we get into the process a little bit more. But ultimately, once you stake your parcel, you'll lease it for 3 years. You have the sole and exclusive right to use that parcel. And then after that 3 years, or during the 3 years, we will survey and appraise it, after which you have the opportunity to purchase it for the fair market value, and we'll cover how all that part works. But once you purchase it, it is be simple. You own the land to do with as you see fit. So a little bit about ourselves. I introduced myself. I'm from the Fairbanks office, and Justin, who's in the room with us here today. Additionally, in the Anchorage office, you'll find Brandon Phillips and Sandy Paris, both of which we will probably be dealing with through the process of staking a parcel. And for those folks in Fairbanks, if you're going to be coming in to the Fairbanks office with an application, you'll probably be dealing with myself or Colin Craven or Priscilla Danso there. And all of our contact information is going to be available, I believe, on page 6 of the staking instructions, and we have it available online as well. And we are open to questions, discussion anytime throughout the process. We're trying to help out as best we can. For other support, you can go to the Public Information Center. We have one in Fairbanks and in Anchorage. Those are the hours up there. And the Public Information Center is a great source of information. It's a great resource for if you're doing research about the area in advance, trying to plan out where to stake. They have computers there that we can set you up and get you through a lot of resources to look at it there. Most of those resources are also available online, but they can help kind of walk you through how to use some of those materials. And then the same thing with our folks in Anchorage or Fairbanks. If you call us up, we can walk you through on the phone how to use some of that stuff. But all of our information is available online in the staking instructions. So feel free to give us a call at any time. So first and foremost, we're going to go over here. We're going to spend a little bit of time on the Stakers Resources page. Was there anybody here in the room or online that was an alternate rather than a winner for the staking? Okay, hearing none. So with the for winners for the from the drawing, if you were selected as a winner for it, then you should have received an email with this email address that's listed here at the top of the page. The alternates, we did not send that address out yet. So for this email address, I highly recommend that you bookmark this page. It is not accessible through an external link or through a link on our webpage. Very specific, we don't have it linked because we don't want somebody to accidentally stumble across the information and kind of be misinformed, thinking that they can go out and stake a parcel. So you have to type that URL in directly in order to access that page. So once you get there, I recommend you bookmark it. So this is going to have a lot of information about the individual areas. So this is what we're generically, when I throughout the presentation here, when I talk about the staking packet, that's ultimately, this is the materials that I'm referring to. So the first part of the page is going to be all of your general information that applies to all areas, anyway, both Lost Creek and Solatna in this case. And then as we move on, we're going to get, or as you move down the page, you'll get into the area specific information for Lost Creek and Solatna. So just going over what some of those things are, the first part's all general, applies to all areas. The area specific ones are going to have the supplemental staking instructions for the area, which applies just to that area. So that lists any specific rules, which we'll cover in this presentation a bit. It's also going to have the staking map. I would highly encourage folks to check back on this regularly. So if especially if folks are going to be going out later in the staking period, when we get lease applications in, we'll do our best to try and get those put onto the map and updated so folks can see where other parcels are in the area. So that'll potentially help you plan for for when you go out into the area to see what's already out there, what's currently being staked or has been staked. With that said, it takes us a little bit of time to get that on there by the time we adjudicate it and map it and everything else. So please feel free to call in before you go out into the area to check and see if there's any updates. To that end, if you're going to be heading out into the area, especially if you're going to be maybe making multiple trips, if you want to give us a call, let us know that you're heading out there, where you're planning to stake, something like that. We can hopefully relay that information on to let other folks know that, hey, somebody is actively staking in this area or something like that. So we can hopefully get as much information to folks as we can. But we do try to update that regularly, so please check back in there throughout the staking period. So we have a coordinate map anyway, and that coordinate map is going to show the so the boundaries of the area, reserved areas, setbacks, things like that. So you can plug those coordinates into your GPS to make sure to either avoid those areas or as references to locate them when you're out in the field. And then we have survey plats. So both Solatna and Lost Creek, both areas have private property out in the area, and those survey plats provide the legal description location for those private properties. So that's going to be useful for avoiding those, and so make sure you're not staking into somebody's private property. But additionally, we're going to be asking you to find a reference point for your parcel, and the kind of the gold standard for that is going to be the monuments for that reference point, and that'll show you where they are, and it'll give you coordinates for those, so you can hopefully find those monuments. So, so in a nutshell, we're gonna kind of tell you what we're gonna tell you here. But so first off, we're gonna cover kind of the preparation for going out before you go out into the field. So first and foremost is reading the staking packet. So printing those materials out, and I'll get into that. Attending a workshop, you're already ahead of the game because you're here. And then completing the staking questionnaire, principally so you can kind of start getting some of the getting some of those materials ready for that. But cover research in the area, preparing your materials, and then what to do out in the field. So how to select a site, find a reference point, get your posts and lines all squared away, and then all the documentation that you're going to be required. And then once you get back into the field, how to complete your application, ultimately apply for your lease, and then what happens during and after the lease of the parcel. So before we get started, are there any questions for anything we've covered yet, or any kind of burning questions that you have? All right. So for folks that are in the room, please feel free to just, or in the room or online, please feel free just to interrupt me and ask whatever questions you have. If we're going to be covering it a little bit later, I might put a pin in it or just kind of give you some preliminary information, but we'll circle back to it. I want to make sure that we answer all of your questions that you have here today. So we'll go and get started on this. So first and foremost, so this is again the staking packet. So what we're referring to is as basically that the bulk of that information that's available on that stakers resources page. And this is just a list of those materials, which we'll cover here. So the first one is going to be the staking instructions. So I strongly recommend that everybody print a copy of this out, sit down, take the time to read through this and go through that material, because this is going to be all the information that you need to know for how to stake a parcel and what's going to be expected of you in the field. I also recommend that you bring a copy of this with you into the field. So even with the best laid plans and like you might have things planned out, have coordinates on there, if you bring a copy of this with you, this will help you address some of those situations that if you're going out to stake a parcel boundary and there's a water body along it, how do you address it? Something like that. So I strongly recommend that you bring that with. But this is all the rules for how to stake a parcel. It has a lot of examples in there. It has some sample sketches for doing a sketch plat, walks you through how to fill out the lease application, all of that. So a lot of good information in this one. Then there's going to be the supplemental staking instructions that are going to be specific to the area. So I recommend bringing this with you. This has information about the setbacks, reserved areas that are specific to that area that you're going to be staking in, so either Slatina or Lost Creek. Additionally, it's going to have some information, the base appraisal information, survey information. So if you're kind of planning ahead for what you're going to be expected to pay during this, during the process from leasing through to the point of purchase, all that information is going to be in the supplemental instructions there as well. The staking checklist, I recommend that you, again, print this one out and bring it with you as well. This is just that. It's a checklist. It just kind of goes through to help guide you through the staking checklist. So both before you go into the field and then afterwards, once you get into the field, it'll walk you through all of the photos that you need to take, basically what you need to fill out, make sure you're getting all the coordinates and all the information into that lease application. So the lease application is effectively going to be somewhat of a fill in the blank, meets and bounds description of your parcel. And we'll walk through that and guide you through that process as well. The staking map. This is going to show other existing private property within the area. It's going to show the setbacks, reservations, things like that. And again, going to be updated periodically throughout the staking period. Additionally, when you turn in your lease application, we're going to ask you to draw your parcel on the staking map and submit that as part of it, so we can see kind of in the grand scheme of things where your parcel fits in with everything. The staking map also has some useful information to you. So if you'll notice at kind of the center of the page, kind of just down below the map, is the declination, which will cover that and how that applies to describing your parcel. It has information about which USGS topo map applies. So if you want to go out, there's a variety of online resources to where you can actually print out the appropriate map, and some mapping resource to where you can plug that in and navigate to the area and such. But yeah, so good source of information there. The boundary coordinate diagram is going to show all of the, it's going to show the corners, the boundaries of the parcel, all of that. So for instance, in Slatina, if you're planning on staking up towards the eastern boundary of the staking area, there is a large reserved area about a half a mile wide anyway. And just for reference, the reason that's there for Slatina is it butts up against federal land, and it's an unsurveyed boundary. And so if we haven't found the boundary, we're not going to ask you to do so. So we just wanted to make sure that, that we're keeping everybody well within state land and well within the area. It also shows the setbacks from the Kuskokwim River, the Slatina River, First Fork Slatina, et cetera. And then where those private properties are. And so as a survey key, it basically lists out which ones those are, which in this case, I think for both Lost Creek and Slatina, they're all under the same survey, I believe, correct, for each
Yeah,
one?
there's just one survey for each area.
Yeah, one survey for each. Perfect. All right, thanks. But yeah, so with this, if you're going to be out in one of those areas between these coordinates here or using the survey plats, it's a great opportunity to go in before you go out in the field. Once you kind of have an idea where you're going to stake, select what you're going to use for a reference point. You can plug those coordinates into your GPS in advance. And so that'll help you navigate once you are into the area. And we'll cover that a little bit when we get into the preparations as well. So the lease application, I strongly recommend bringing, at least 1 or 2 copies of this out in the field. Again, this is going to be effectively a fill in the blank meets and bounds description of your parcel, and it's going to ask you to, when you submit this, we ask you to describe, all of your photographs, the coordinate, the distance and direction between your corners, all of that. And so if you bring this into the field, you can start filling this out in the field. And so you can just take all of your notes right there on there. You take a photograph, you can kind of describe right there what the photograph is right there. And then once you get back in, back home anyway, out of the field, you can print out a clean copy without all the mosquito guts on it and then fill that one out and, for turning that in. But bringing this into the field will help you be successful in making sure that you're capturing all that information we're going to ask you to gather, because there's a good bit of information. All right. And then, just a couple of things. We have a link to the brochure in there on the webpage. Has some useful information about the program if you'd like to circle back to that. We also have the base appraisal information on that, as well as in the supplemental instructions, so you'll see that. There is a remote rec flowchart, which shows kind of pictographically the whole process from start to finish, so you can review that if you'd like. And then there's links to a couple of fact sheets on the website there. So the generally allowed use of fact sheet is going to be important. So first and foremost, a lot of the most everything you're going to be doing as part of this staking is going to fall within generally allowed uses. So under generally allowed uses on unencumbered general state land, you can cut a trail up to 5 foot wide using hand tools, right? So that's pretty much more or less what you're going to be doing when you're brushing your boundaries. We don't want you to cut a 5 foot wide trail. We'll cover that. But brushing is part of the generally allowed uses. You can operate an off-road vehicle up to 1,500 pounds on or off of an established easement, as long as you're not doing damage to the vegetative mat. So all of that stuff is covered. Additionally, so the area surrounding your parcel is largely going to be general state land. So once you own that parcel, this describes what you can do on that state land in the vicinity. So for instance, for the folks that are in Lost Creek, if you wanted to, so once you have your parcel, if you wanted to cut a trail, to go out and access a different area in the vicinity, you can cut a trail up to 5 foot wide using hand tools, which includes a chainsaw, and you can operate your ATV on it. Or you could cut in like a trap line trail or something like that. You can use dead and down wood on state land on site anyway for a fire. However, you cannot collect dead and down wood and bring it back to your property. It's only available for use on site. If you would like to collect wood, like within the vicinity, you can get a firewood permit. So currently it's minimum 3 cords, maximum 10 cords, and it's I believe $10 a cord for firewood on state land. So if you'd like to get firewood in the vicinity, you just need to get a permit to do so, because that's not covered under generally allowed uses. So anyway, so these are the rules here are ultimately going to apply to your parcel up until the point that is leased. So once you go out there and stake the parcel, that doesn't give you the sole and exclusive right to use the parcel until it is leased. So what that means is if you're out there staking, you might stake the parcel, but that doesn't allow you to prohibit somebody else from camping on it or using it until you're under lease. Once you're under lease, it is your property to use as you see fit. We also have a fact sheet on here about the appraisal process and how that applies to the remote rec program. So the remote rec appraisal is a little bit unique because we've already completed the appraisal for this. So we've evaluated the areas, we've looked at it, we've assigned a value to hypothetical parcels within the area. And then once you stake your parcel, we're going to be evaluating your parcel based on that value that's already been established for it. And we'll go through that in a little bit more detail, but this describes that process for that. All right, and then Firewise information. So for those folks who are in the room, we have Firewise booklets now somewhere on the back, back table there. Perfect. For folks online, this is available on the website, and I strongly encourage folks to review this information. So we list in the materials what the fire management option for each of these areas is, and what that the fire management option describes the priority in which our Division of Forestry, or in cooperation with BLM Fire Service, is going to dedicate resources to preventing or stopping putting out a fire in an area. There is no guarantee, regardless of what that fire management option is, that they will that they will actually dedicate resources to it, or that they will fight fire in that area. So this gives you some direction as to how to protect your investment and to create defensible space, maybe impound water, do other things that'll make it easier for a firefighter to actually defend your structure once you have one out there in the area, if you have one out there in the area. And so to that end, I mean, if you build a cabin where you have black spruce running right up to the doorstep of your cabin, there is no firefighter that's going to hop in there and try to defend that if a fire comes through the area because it's just too dangerous. However, if you have defensible space, if you've cleared out 50 feet around the cabin, if you've limbed up the trees, from the ground up to prevent a ground fire from coming through, all of that is going to set them up for success to where they can go in and hopefully defend your structure if a fire does come through the area. So I highly encourage folks to review that. Additionally, while you're planning for the as to where you're going to stake, plan on areas that that might have hardwoods as opposed to like black spruce or some of your conifers. Anyway, so plan for areas that are a little bit more defensible from the start. Anyway, and get you set up better from the start. All right. So a couple other things. There's a photo release form. A lot of the photos that you see in here in this presentation and that are online and such have come from folks such as yourselves who've been out there in the field staking a parcel. We get some fantastic photos every year, and I always appreciate the ability to use those photos in presentations on our website, things like that. If you would be so kind as to allow us to use your photos, if you would please submit this with your application so that we can do so. Additionally, there is a lease application payment form in there. And so if you were going to be sending in your application as opposed to bringing it in person, if you fill this out, we'll just use this to charge a credit card right there. And then once we run the card, we'll just destroy the form. But that's just going to be if you are sending it in, not bringing it in person. All right. So with that, are there any questions about the staking packet or anything we've covered thus far? Okay, hearing none. So we'll get into researching the area here. All right, so with one of the primary tools here that I want to cover, and we'll probably cover this after the next break, is going to be the Alaska Mapper program. And so that's an image that you see on the screen here is from Alaska Mapper. This is available via the DNR website, and it's an interactive mapping system that shows a lot of the information that you're going to need to see, which shows any authorization on state land, very specifically within the area. So with this tool, you can use it to measure distance, measure area. You can get some coordinates on there. It'll potentially help you out quite a bit for planning before you go out in the area to stake a parcel. Whatever resources you use, Google Maps is a great resource. Onyx Hunts anyway. The Onyx Hunt app is one that's pretty popular. A lot of folks use that nowadays. But there's a whole lot of interactive mapping programs out there available online or with subscription that you can use to plan ahead in advance. I highly encourage folks to go out there, look at imagery, look at topography, and kind of plan ahead for what the parcel is going to be. So some of the considerations are going to be access. How are we going to access it, right? So for Salatina, I mean, it's going to be pretty easy. You're going to go up to the river, wherever it is, and probably go upland from there anyway to your parcel. For Lost Creek, it might be a little bit different, right? So there's other private property in the area. There are some trails in the area that access to private property. So one of the considerations with the staking program is you are not allowed to stake over any trails that we've identified on the map, which there are none within either Salatina or Lost Creek. However, if there is a trail that is active and in use at the time of staking, you can stake across it, but you will be subject to a 60-foot easement, 30 foot on either side of that trail. So the implication is that you can stake it. You'll have an stake across it. You will have an easement through your property, and you cannot block that off anyway. So you can't put your cabin there. You can't, in that case, since it's going to be centered on the trail, you cannot build within 30 feet anyway of the tread of that trail, as it were. So plan on how you're going to be accessing the parcel. We're going to be asking a lot of information about your access in the application. We'll get to that. But plan on other things like how are you going to get water out there? So for Salatina, it's going to be right in front of your parcel. Probably not a big deal. For Lost Creek, it's going to be a little harder, right? So you might have to bring water in or plan on water catchment or something like that. There's not a whole lot of creeks in the area. But plan ahead for what you might be paying for the parcel in there. So between the base appraisal and using some of these online resources, you can kind of map out what a 5-acre parcel, 20-acre parcel, whatever, something that's within the budget and what you're willing to pay for that. And we'll cover the appraisal information a little bit later. But additionally, so plan ahead for what you're going to be using for a reference point. So first and foremost, once we get onto the area, we need to know where to start in order to find your parcel, right? So we're going to get coordinates for where your coordinates are. But, should your GPS or that information be off, we need to be able to tell the surveyor that start at this point and then go this distance and direction to your parcel. So kind of the gold standard of that is to find a monument anyway, which I've got one here for folks that are present. And we'll be talking about those in a little bit. But resources such as this or those survey plots will help you kind of plan ahead for where you're going to get a monument in the vicinity. So you can try and so you can see what that is and even get approximate coordinates from that using this website or the survey materials. So we'll cover the Alaska Mapper program a little bit more a little bit later in. All right. So before we go out into the field, so you're going to need to collect a whole bunch of materials and information, before you go out in the field. And so we'll cover what some of those things are. So again, that staking packet, I highly recommend that you print out the staking instructions, the supplemental staking instructions for the area, the checklist, and then get a couple of copies of that lease application to bring in the field with you at a bare minimum. Plan on having something to take notes with, right? So I really love those Write in the Rain notebooks because, they work out great. You can use a pencil on them. Doesn't matter if it's raining. You can take plenty of notes in there. You're also going to want a, pen and piece of paper, or, pencil piece of paper for doing other things. Like when we get to covering monuments, so you can take an etching of a monument or something like that. You're going to need to take a lot of notes, and you're going to need to adequately identify what photos are which. So in some cases, you can hold up a piece of paper that that has number 1 on it. So to indicate that you are taking a photo of your corner post number 1 or something like that, or have your staking assistant hold it up that, having a little note on there that says 1, 2, 2, so that you're standing at corner number 1, looking back at number 2. And we'll cover some of that here in a little bit, but you're going to need writing materials. You are going to need a compass. I would strongly recommend, going investing in a decent compass, like a Sunto Brunto compass, something that has hopefully adjustable declination, which you don't need to use, but we'll cover that. But get a good functional compass anyway, not your old Boy Scout one, preferably, but something that gives you a good reading on there. You're going to need some sort of GPS unit of sorts. You can, depending on kind of the phone that you have, you might be able to use your phone or something with an app on your phone or iPad or something like that. Honestly, I would probably recommend just a standalone unit or have a standalone as a backup anyway. So for everything that we're talking about here, I highly recommend that you have redundancy. So I always like to tell a kind of cautionary tale. Sad story. We had a lady that was staking many years ago, chartered a plane, flew out to an area, float plane accessible lake, staked her parcel, took all the photos, did everything she needed to do. She was getting out of the float plane. The camera fell out of her pocket into the float pond and everything was lost. So she had to go back out to the area again, charter another flight to go out there and get the photos. We cannot accept an application if we do not have the photos. So I would recommend going out and getting, if you're, taking photos with your cell phone, have your staking assistant or whoever's helping you, whatever, go along right behind you and take them with their phone as well, or bring a disposable film camera or something, but have some redundancy so you have that. The photos also need to be legible. So anyway, if you have a digital camera to where you can actually go in there and zoom in and make sure that you can see the writing on your nameplate or something like that, absolutely fantastic. If you're using one that doesn't have if you can't review the photo, just be diligent, take extras, make sure your lens is clean because we need to have those photos legible in there. So have redundancy. You are going to need something to measure your parcel with. So there's thanks. So what I'm holding up here for folks in the room is a reel tape. So that's going to be that gray photo that's down there at the bottom center of the page. But so these are great. This is a pretty small one that I have here. It's a 100-footer. But you can get these, 500 feet or whatever. But it's a fantastic way to measure distance. They're well marked on there. It's a non-stretchy tape, so you can get a pretty accurate measurement. You don't even need to go this high speed or that technical. You can get a rope anyway, and you can get a 300-foot length of rope anyway, and then just mark it off with a knot or electrical tape at 50-foot increments, right? And then you get down to the end of it and you mark it off at 10-foot increments, and you get down to the last 10 foot and you mark it off at 1-foot increments, right? So if you're measuring a boundary that's 550 feet, you stretch that out for 300 feet, you stretch it out again for 200 feet, and then you pull out, the three 10-foot markings, and it's, 550 feet there. That was 530. I can math, I promise you. Anyway, so there's another tool that, down at the bottom center of the screen here, anyway, that little red box there, it's called a hip chain. If you want to Google this, I strongly recommend that you actually Google forestry hip chain. I Googled that in a staking workshop one time, and it was impressive, some of the things that came up anyway on there. So, but what that is, it's a little box that has a little spool of thread in there, right? And so what you do is it's a little cotton, biodegradable thread. So you can walk up to a tree anyway, and you tie that off to like your corner post or something, and then you reset the little dial to 0, and then you just take a walk through the woods, and as you're walking, it's pulling out that little spool of thread and taking off the feet, and then you get to basically your next corner post, and then you can basically look down. It says it's 723 feet. Then you can just clip it off right there. Just leave the thread right there where it's at. It's a great way to measure distance. However, so for the Solatna folks, it's probably not going to be that much of an issue because it's pretty flat out there. But it's going to give you basically the map of the Earth distance, right? So it's not going to give you the true horizontal distance on there. For Lost Creek, where you're going to have a little bit more hills and topography, you might need to, depending on where you're staking, account for the slope anyway on there. And we'll cover that when we get into measurement. So for that, bring a couple of different options. You're just going to need something to measure the distance. I strongly encourage you to actually measure the distance to get an actual measurement, like physically measure it, as opposed to using something like a GPS to do so. So most of your kind of consumer grade GPSs, they're going to be pretty good. I mean, they're going to give you distance, in the feet, up to, 150, 200 feet or something like that. And then it pops 0.2 of a mile, right? And that doesn't really work when you're looking at the difference between 0.2 miles and 0.3 miles, it's going to be 500 something foot difference, right? And so, we need to be much more accurate than that. So get something that can actually measure at a pretty accurate distance. I'm sorry, I didn't see the hand up. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is there any regulations when we're doing the staking? Are we allowed to use like theodolite survey equipment to do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you can, we have no problems with you being more accurate than you need to be. So
okay.
That is absolutely perfect. Yeah.
I'm a surveyor's daughter, so it kind of bred into me.
All right. So now just so you know, you just set the gold standard for yourself. No pressure.
You got no pressure at all. Yeah. I'm going to get graded on my staking plan now.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately our whole goal here is to make sure that, we get accurate enough information to where we can identify where your parcel is. So however we get to that point, yeah, that's fine by us. That's fantastic. So a couple other tools, which I think we might cover on another one here. Well, I'll just go ahead and advance forward here. So for rangefinders, anyway, so rangefinders can be a good, useful tool for getting distances, generally over pretty short range anyway, but you need to make sure you have a pretty good, accurate backstop. Some of them even, you can get the angle corrected true horizontal distance anyway on there. So those can be pretty useful. But over some of the longer distances we're going to be talking about here, it can be kind of tough making sure you've got an accurate backstop or they're stable enough to actually get a good reading on there. But they can be pretty useful there if you'd like to use one of those. All right. So you are going to need something to brush your lines with, right? So depending on where your parcel's at, a chainsaw could come in handy, but it's probably not really necessary. We'll get into this when we get into actually brushing the lines, but ultimately we are just looking for a line of sight, right? So we just want a cleared path 2 to 3 feet wide where you can see flag to flag, so we're looking for flagging every 10, 20 feet down that line. To where you can see that there is a line there. We do not need, nor do we want, a 5 foot wide cleared trail through there. So if there's a tree that's more than 4 inches in diameter on the center of your trail, just wrap some flagging around it and keep on brushing. Anyway, you don't need to cut down the trees in there. It's actually preferable that you don't because, in some cases, if you're if you're staking a small parcel right down about 5 acres, or you're staking a large one right up to about the 20 acre mark, there's a good chance that we're going to have to adjust your corners a little bit for acreage if you're just a little bit under, a little bit over, something like that. Or if we have to account for some sort of topography or something like that, just for a setback, who knows what. And so we don't want a big cleared trail that's going to be going like inside your parcel or one that's going to be outside your parcel. So, keep it pretty minimal because that's going to be subject to change anyway once we actually do the final survey. One of my favorite tools for brushing and clearing is going to be that tool up in the upper right corner. It's called a sandvik, also known as a Swede axe or a brush axe. Swede is in Swedish. And so what it is, it's a very sharp blade that's basically kind of it's between this it's on an axe handle anyway, but that thing, I mean, cuts through alders and such like butter. Anyway, it's fantastic. You can pop the blade out, sharpen it up again. It's a good sturdy tool anyway, and it's they're pretty safe to use. I absolutely love those things. It's my favorite brushing tool ever. So you can probably use that for all of the brushing that you need to do. And not even have a chainsaw. However, if you're going to plan on using native vegetation for your corner posts, you're going to need to have something to cut down that tree to square up the post, and we'll kind of cover that and how that works a little bit. But so you probably don't necessarily need a chainsaw, but it could come in handy depending on what you're doing. If you are not going to be using native vegetation, you are going to need to bring out posts, right? So plan on bringing like 4x4 posts or something like that. We ask you to not use carcinite posts. They are very visible if you're looking at the flat side, not so much so if you're looking at the narrow edge. Anyway, so we're looking for something like a good 4-inch by 4-inch, 3-inch by 3-inch, something like that kind of post. You can prep those up in advance to where you can take a couple of 4x4s out there, paint them up blaze orange. You can even put your name tags on there, your corner post tags on there before you even go out in the fields, where all you have to do is put them in the ground. There's some pretty great ways of doing it. Some folks they'll take that 4x4 post, drill a hole in the bottom and bring out some rebar to where you can pound the rebar into the ground and then pound your post down on top of that. You can take T-posts out there, like the fence post, the kind of T-shaped fence posts, pound those on the ground and wire your 4x4 post to that. Or you can take out the 4x4 post out there and wire it to a smaller tree or some native vegetation. Please don't either cut down dead trees to use as a post or wire your post to a dead tree. It's going to fall over. It just is. Anyway, but you're going to need to plan for something for the post there. The metal name tags, you're going to need to prep those up in advance. We'll kind of talk about what you need for doing that in a few minutes here. And you are going to need flagging tape, a lot of flagging tape. Anyway, so just go out and get a whole stack of it. Please do not use yellow or green flagging tape. It does not show up in photos very well, nor does blue. My recommendation is get blaze orange or hot pink. And we get some very vibrant flagging tape. Once we get into it, one of the concerns that that we have when we're reviewing these applications, one of the things that they oftentimes get kicked back for is we need somebody to go out and either add more flagging to their line or take photos that show that their line is adequately flagged. If we cannot see the flagging in your photograph going every 10, 20 feet down the line down there, we might have to send you back out to get new photos or something.
In the photo there, you got a little piece of tape above the axe.
Yeah, that's on the tree behind it. I think we've got some similar ones. That's actually a line that we cut in so as a representation line, actually right behind the office up in Fairbanks, but a few years ago. But I've got some better photos of a flagged line. We'll show you a couple of those. So was that the question about being able to see the flagging in there?
I can see that.
Oh yeah, we'll show you some other photos here, some representative photos here in a little bit when we talk about flag lines, and we'll kind of show you what we're looking for. So. All right, so I'm going to put in a little plug here because field safety is very important to me. Bring and whatever gear is going to keep you safe and comfortable. Anyway, in there, please have a good first aid kit, a well-stocked first aid kit, and know how to use it. Anyway, I highly encourage anybody, if you have not done so already, if you're going to be out in the woods recreating, please get the training to know how to use the materials in that first aid kit. There's a lot of great resources out there. Additionally, I always, do you mind if I pick on you two for a minute? Here in the room. All right, I appreciate this. So I'm guessing I'm assuming you guys know each other. Anyways, oh, your brother. Okay. All right. So do you know if she has any medical conditions that might be a problem out in the field and how to deal with those? All right. And same thing for him, for you. All right, good. That's one thing that a lot of times people overlook is that they might be going out in the field with somebody and they might not know that the person has a heart condition, or they might be a diabetic, or they might have some other thing. You need to communicate with your field partners before you go out in the field to make sure you can adequately deal with any situation that might come up before you go out. So anyway, that's my soapbox moment. I just want folks to be well prepared before you go out in the field and for everybody to come back safely. So yeah, make sure you bring first aid equipment, safety equipment, and communication. So whether that's an in-reach, sat phone, something like that, to where you can communicate with folks back in back in the real world. All right, so there are a number of places you can get any of these materials, and so so we've thrown a couple up here. If you have, if you're looking for something in particular, don't know where to find it, give us a call. We might have some suggestions as to where you can find some of this stuff, or suggestions that might help you out to what to look for some of these things. So feel free to give us a call. We're here to help. We'll try and help you out the best we can for any of that. All right, so we're going to cover just a couple more things here, and then we'll take a brief break. So with your GPS unit, so you're going to need a GPS unit that you can that you know how to use, right? So make sure you understand how to use that before you go out in the field. Read the manual, get familiar with it. There's a couple of things you're going to need to know how to do on there, and we'll cover that. But you need to understand the settings on that GPS. So on the GPS that you see here, if you can see the image, this is showing the setup screen anyway on here as to what the coordinate format is. So one of the important things is going to be the datum. So most consumer grade GPSs default to a datum of WGS84, World Global System 1984. We tend to use, which is fantastic. That's a great datum to use for us. Some of the older ones might be in NAD 27, North American Datum 1927. There is going to be, between those two, there's going to be about 500 feet minimum distance between those two datums. So you need to know what datum you're either putting information into. So if you're pulling it off of a survey plat, what you're putting into the GPS, and we need to know what datum you're collecting that in. So most of the materials that we have, I believe, are all going to be in NAD 83, North American Datum 1983. And the material should list what that datum is, but the datum is for overview. It's basically just how you basically map basically a 3D world onto a two-dimensional grid, so to speak. But there's a big difference between those. Additionally, the coordinate format. So you can get coordinates in. You might collect them or add them in, or you might have resources to have them in decimal degrees, decimal minutes, or degrees, minutes, seconds. Anyway, and so it doesn't really matter for us how you give them to us, as long as we know what it is, right? So we prefer it in latitude and longitude in degrees, so as opposed to like northings and eastings, But as long as we know what you put it in there, whatever we can calculate to what it is. If you're going to be using your GPS as a compass, which I don't necessarily recommend, and we'll cover some kind of compass heading things in a little bit. But if you're going to be using it, make sure you know whether you are using it in true or magnetic anyway, because there's going to be a big difference. We got near 20 degrees of declination depending on where we're at within the staking areas here. So I strongly recommend that you take a photo of your GPS settings page, right? So before you collect any data on that, so we know what your GPS was set to when you collected that data. So if there's any discrepancy, we can go back and reference that to see what it was. Additionally, so make sure you know what those settings are. If you're going to be going into, say, one of the survey plats, for instance, and you're going to be pulling off a coordinate, so I believe the coordinates on these ones were, I think we looked at it, and they're both in NAD 27 and NAD 83. I think they give both.
Yeah, both surveys. But the coordinates they show both NAD 87 and NAD 83.
Perfect.
So
Perfect. All right.
NAD 83.
Yes, indeed. So if your GPS is set to WGS 84, if it defaults to WGS 84, and you put in a coordinate in NAD 27, you're going to be off by several hundred feet, when you go to navigate to that. So to get around that, if you were going to put it, if you're pulling a coordinate from NAD 27, change your GPS setting to NAD 27 or to the NAD 27 datum, enter in the coordinate. And also if you're entering in degrees, minutes, seconds, whatever, change it to degrees, minutes, seconds, add that in there. And you can always revert back to it, change the setting back. It's automatically going to recalculate that coordinate when you go to navigate to it, right? So make sure you understand what the datum is. The difference between WGS 84 and NAT 83 is just, I mean, I think it's a couple of meters vertical difference. For the most part, they're very, very close datums. But where possible, switch your GPS to the setting anyway, whatever that is, before you enter that coordinate data in. For coordinates, if you're going to be switching between coordinates anyway, so some sources might have degrees, minutes, seconds, some might have decimal degrees. Some of them, if you're using an online system, you can actually just switch it right there as to the output format. But it's really simple. If you're going to go, if something is giving you a coordinate in decimal degrees, for instance, and you need to change that to degrees, minutes, seconds, you take everything after the decimal point, multiply by 60. That gives you the minutes, decimal minutes. You take everything after the decimal in the minutes, and then multiply that by 60, and that's going to give you degrees, minutes, seconds. So anyway, that's just how that works. If you have questions about that, let us know. But again, take a photo of your GPS so we know what you did there. So when you're using your GPS, we're going to ask you to collect coordinates, like for your reference point, your corner points, things like that. But then you're also going to need to be able to bring that information back up again. So make sure you know how to save a waypoint, label that waypoint as appropriate, and then bring that back up to navigate back to it. So there's a lot of the GPSs nowadays have a lot of really cool tools, or if you're using like an app on your smartphone or something, you can walk the perimeter of an area. It'll calculate the overall perimeter, calculate the area within there. A lot of really great tools, and you can even export that. If you want to export that data and give it to us, fantastic. The more information, the better. That gives us a really great idea of what you're doing. But make sure you know how to use the GPS, how to save tracks. And specifically, if once you mark something, how to get back to it, both in the field and also to bring that information back up on your GPS so you can calculate it. We're going to cover this in a minute, but when you're taking a coordinate, I recommend taking a photograph of that screen anyway when you take that coordinate, so you can pull that back up and you have a photo of what your GPS said the coordinate was when you were out there. So that way, if you have transcription errors or something like that, we can find out what those are. All right. Lastly, prepping nameplates. You can use a wide variety of resources for your nameplates. So you can take a sheet, aluminum or steel or something like that anyway, and you can stamp your information in there. You can engrave it on there. Or you can go really simple and take a soda can or a beer can, something like that. You cut the ends off it, roll it out flat. You put it on a stack of paper or something like that, relatively soft, and you write on it with like a little Bic pen, ballpoint pen, and then that'll emboss it into the aluminum. So that way it's permanent on there, so we can see that. However, please go back over that and then draw back over that with a magic marker over the writing, because we have to have it legible in a photograph so where we can see that it's properly labeled, right? So engrave it in there, emboss it in there, do whatever, but then go back over it with the permanent marker so it is actually legible. So please, if you're going to be using soda cans or beer cans, wash them thoroughly. We have had several instances in the past where somebody went out there, they put the corner post out there on the post. They came back a couple of weeks later and a bear had eaten all their nameplates off because they still taste like Coca-Cola. So, please wash them thoroughly before you go out there. But all of this stuff, you can prep it well in advance, whatever, before you go out in the field. If you're bringing your corner posts out there, you can have them attached to your corner post. If you're going to be attaching when you're out there in the field, make sure you have a way to attach them to the post. So, all right. So with that, we're going to cover, so we've covered the whole realm of getting prepared to go out in the field. So coming up next, we're going to kind of cover what you need to do once you get out into the field. So let's take a little break here. But before we do, does anybody have any questions on anything we've covered?
Oh, I just wanted to first make an announcement. Could everyone just put your first and last name in the chat for the online participants? I'm just adding names to my sign-in sheet. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Any questions from anybody before we take a break? Okay. We good with about 5-6 minutes, and we'll come back here. We'll circle back up in a few minutes and get rolling again on what to do once you're in the field. All right. Thanks. For folks online, I'm going to put you on mute here, and we'll be back in 5-6 minutes. All right. We're back from the break, so thank you, everybody. Yeah, we got a couple folks here probably going to be trickling back into the room here in a few minutes. But so we'll start out kind of with the review of kind of what we got to at this point. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the history of the program a bit, and then we covered that the staking packet materials, which is going to be that stakers resources page, and so all the information on there. Again, I strongly encourage folks to go out and print out the stake instructions, supplemental stake instructions, the checklist, and a couple of copies of your the lease application, and bring all that information into the field with you. So, before you go out in the field, spend some time researching the area. So, plan ahead, looking at, imagery, topography, other, whatever other information you can, and, start maybe planning out where you're going to stake a parcel. Consider things like, your access to water, the topography, building site, things like that, how you're going to get there, how you're going to use the property. And it's a great opportunity to go out and start planning. You can even start mapping out a parcel and get some coordinates for where you want to start looking, or even plan out a parcel in advance into the field. Recognizing the fact that once you get out there, the conditions in the field are going to rule. So you might have to adjust your parcel, adjust your plan from there, depending on what you were doing. So to that end, I don't think it really covered. One of the things that if you're out there and if you're planning in advance, you've got a parcel all kind of mapped out and planned out, and you've got some coordinates for where you think you might want to stake a parcel, come in and talk to us about it, right? So we'd love to have those conversations well in advance. You can share that, hey, I think I want to stake around like this bend on the Slatina River, and I want to put a parcel like that. And whatever we might take a look at it and like, okay, well, yeah, that might work, but it looks like you're a little over the 33% water frontage restriction. So if you adjust this boundary that way, that'll make it comply with those rules, something like that. So we are more than we'd love to take the time to to go through and take a look at it and kind of help you out in advance. But so yeah, you can plan out in advance. Just recognize that when you're in the field, the conditions in the field are what's going to rule. So you might have to make some adjustments, and having those staking instructions there in the field with you will help out as to how to do that. So anyway, additionally, prepare all your materials in advance. So get your, plan on what you're going to be doing for your corner post, or prep those up in advance. Get your nameplates all prepped up. Collect all your materials. Have redundancy for everything. Make sure you have all the equipment to go out there, be successful and safe when you're in the field. All right. So yeah. So at this point, we're ready to step into the field and start staking the parcel. Any questions come up when we were on the break that anybody wants to ask before we get going? Okay. All right. So here or nothing. So moving on to in the field. So first thing, when you get out there and so you pull up to the area on the Slatina, Lost Creek, whatever, you're at the site that you think you want to stake. Take the time to walk around the site first, get a pretty good feel for what you're going to be doing. So you might have, planned out 20 acres, somewhere in between on that property, but kind of walk out, do a rough walk through the property, make sure it has a good buildable area, make sure that there's not, some wetlands or some slope or some topography issues you didn't recognize in advance. It might save you the trouble of going out there and getting a half a mile of line brushed in before you realize the parcel's not going to work for what you thought it was. So go out there and walk around the area, check it out. So yeah, take a look at, any of that, the landscape or any of the features within the area, make sure they're going to work. Plan ahead as to what's going to work within your budget. We're going to cover this a little bit when we get into the appraisal bit, but the actual the physical conditions of your parcel are not going to affect the actual purchase price much. The biggest factor in the valuation of your parcel is going to be the access to it. So whether it is first tier parcel on the Slatina River, Kuskokwim River, or the First Fork Slatina, or if it is right up on a trail in Lost Creek, or if it's going to be distant from any one of those. That is going to be the biggest driving factor. Access is the highest factor in the value of a parcel. If it has much better buildable area, much better view than other ones, that might cause the value to go up or down just a little bit, but that's not going to be a huge impact. So consider that in selecting your site and get something that's going to work for you and what you want. So when you're out there in the field, I should probably ask this: is there anybody that's planning on heading out in the field and planning on staking March 6th? Are you going to be out there in the field March 6th? All right. First ones. All right. So yeah, You are welcome to go out there and you can camp in the area, you can walk around the area, you can do any of that kind of stuff, but you just may not, mark, flag, brush, do anything prior to 8 a.m. on March 6th. So yeah, you can go out there, camp out the night before, do all that. You just can't mark anything out. If you're out there in the area, you might see other stakers anyway out there in the area when you're there. I mean, it's a good opportunity to stop, talk to them, and ultimately they're going to be your neighbors, so it's a good opportunity to meet them. Maybe if you're looking at staking in pretty close proximity to each other, maybe you can even help each other out. You can share a brush line with somebody anyway, and so yeah, maybe if you plan on helping each other out, sharing that line, it reduces a lot of the work for both of you, and that could be helpful. So I oftentimes joke around about it's probably good to make sure you actually own the land before you start a feud with your neighbors. Anyway, so if you're looking at staking the same area, sit there, kind of talk about it, figure out how you can work it out to where maybe you guys both get what you wanted out of the area. So anyway, check out the area, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. A couple of the big key requirements for the area when you're selecting your site is it has to be within the staking area. We absolutely cannot convey you a parcel that is outside of the staking area. It has to be within the staking requirement. So we are limited by statute to a minimum of 5 acres and a maximum of 20 acres. So we cannot go below or above that. It has to be reasonably compact. So what we're talking about there is roughly square, roughly rectangular, not triangular. So we're looking for something with, generally 4 corners. Depending on kind of extreme circumstances, we might need to throw in a 5th or something like that, and we'll cover that. But generally pretty compact. So that needs to be within the 2-to-1 length to width ratio requirement. So what that means is that from midpoint to midpoint on your kind of side boundaries to midpoint on your front and back boundaries have to be within a ratio of 2-to-1, right? So to give you an idea what that is, a 5-acre parcel is going to be roughly 330 feet by 660 feet, right? So you cannot go for something that is, 165 feet by 1,200 feet long, right? You cannot stake a narrow strip of land. Nor can you stake like a narrow little triangle or something like that. It has to be reasonably compact. So it has to, if you're staking on a water body, there's a couple of restrictions. So first off, the boundaries have to be perpendicular to the water body. Or roughly perpendicular to the water body. And we'll cover that. I'll draw a couple examples up here on the board here in a few minutes. But ultimately what we're looking at is that, if there's a bend in the water body, we want your boundary to kind of come off perpendicular to the tangent of that bend, as it were. Anyway, so what that means is if you're going to be staking around an outside bend, you might have a parcel that comes out a little bit kind of pizza shaped anyway, as it were. If you're going to be, if you're staking on the inside of a bend anyway, it might kind of come out on the back end of the pizza, I guess, a little bit, so they might be slightly trapezoidal in shape anyway, something like that. But so boundaries perpendicular to the water body. The reason for that is that we want to make sure that there's adequate space within there for a parcel to be staked. And I'm going to hop up here and do some drawing on the board here in a second. I'll actually try and flip my camera on for that purpose. But for all the areas, there's a maximum of 33% water frontage restriction. So for Lost Creek, it's probably not going to apply for folks in Lost Creek there, because there's not really any water to speak of out there. But for Salatna, that's important. So if you're staking on the inside of a bend, for instance, you can stake a portion of the inside of that kind of peninsula, whatever, but you cannot stake the entirety of the peninsula. It has to be a maximum of your water frontage is 33%, which kind of shorthand, that is the long side of a rectangle, a 2-to-1 rectangle on the water, more or less. Additionally, with the water frontage, you can only be on one public water body or have a single water body frontage. So you cannot stake up on one side of a water body and then stake, across the peninsula and have water frontage on the other side. It has to be contiguous water frontage and only on one public water body. And so in the case of Salatna, the 3 water bodies effectively are the Kuskokwim River, the Salatna River, and the First Fork Salatna. There's the Salatna River is going to be somewhat sinuous, in nature, so it's going to have a lot of twists and bends in there. So you might have to get a little creative, and I'll draw some examples here in just a minute. If you're going to be staking anywhere along a trail, next to a trail, along a water body, next to a water body, You cannot stake across any trails that are marked on the map as that are indicated on the map. So there's none of that in either Salatna or Lost Creek. However, if you do encounter a trail that is active in use at the time of staking, there will be a 60-foot easement on there, and so you'll be subject to an easement for that trail. So rather than staking across the trail and having an easement go through your property, it might be better to use that trail as a boundary for your parcel instead. Anyway, so there's an option for you there. For section lines, anyway, and I'll point out once we get to a better map of what those section lines are, but you'll see them on the map. The entirety of the state is broken up into the public land survey system. So townships, which are 6 mile by 6 mile squares. And then those townships are broken up into individual sections. So there's 36 square miles per township. And everywhere along those boundaries of those sections is a section line. There will be a 100-foot easement on any section lines within a parcel. So, if you're staking right up, over a section or within a section or next to a section, you're going to have either the entirety or portion of that section line in your parcel. So it's a 100-foot easement, 50-foot either side of the section line. Your parcel boundaries are also going to have a 30-foot easement along all interior boundaries. So if you just use the section line as a boundary, then you basically just that 50-foot easement is going to be, coincide and just be a little bit wider than that regular 30-foot easement. So anyway, plan ahead for what those are going to be. So you can stake across section lines, just not surveyed section lines, which there are none in either one of these areas. So you don't have to worry about that. For setbacks and reserved areas, if there is a setback, you are required to be up to or 330 feet away from that setback, right? So in the case of Salatna, anyway, there's going to be a 100-foot setback on the Kuskokwim, Salatna, First Fork, Salatna. So you either have to be right up to that setback anyway. So you have to be right at 100 feet from ordinary high water or 330 feet from the setback. So in other words, 430 feet from the water. So one or the other. You can't be 200 feet from the water. The principal idea behind that is that if you're going to be taking up that water frontage or, as close to the water as you can, you either need to be all the way up to the water or you need to basically be far enough back to where somebody else could claim that water frontage, right? So up to the setback or 330 feet away from the setback. In Lost Creek, there's a couple of setbacks. So there's a setback from the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, 1,600 feet from the taps, I believe it was.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's what it is.
and 300 feet from the Dalton.
I'll look at the map.
All right, well,
I can confirm.
we'll confirm that in a minute, and when we get the specific information anyway. But with those, both of those setbacks, same thing. You have to be either up to the setback or 330 feet away from it. However, perfect, thank you. However, with reserved areas, those are a little bit different. So there's a couple of reserved areas within Lost Creek, and so with a reserved area, there's no requirement to be up to it or away from it. You just cannot be within that reserved area. Right. So in a nutshell, so all of these are the things that could ultimately result in the rejection of your lease application, or more specifically, require you to go out there and modify what you've staked. Right. So if you've staked, within a reserved area, like if your entire parcel is within a reserved area, within a setback, we're going to have you go back out there and restake it. If you've got one corner that's 80 feet from the river and, whatever, or, 80 feet into the tap setback or something like that, or sorry, we'll say you are 1,550 feet away, so you're pretty close. We can adjust that after the fact anyway. So if it's minor adjustments like that, but if you're entirely within or a large portion of it, we're going to have you modify that anyway. But minor changes we can adjust at the time of survey, generally speaking. But yeah, if you're close on acreage, if you're shooting for 5 acres and you get 4.9, we can probably get that. If you're 20.1, we can reduce that down most likely. But yeah, if you're shooting for 20 acres and you stake 30, we're going to have you go back out there and restake it. So anyway, these are going to be the big things that are going to cause some issues. So let me see if I can real quick share my screen. All right, so I'm going to flip on my camera here so nobody gets scared when you see me. All right. All right. Hello. All right. I'm Tim, by the way. All right. So let's see if we can draw here on our wonderful whiteboard back here. See if we can get that. Sorry, I need to get this little window out of the way there. All right. You see that okay, Justin?
I can, yeah.
All right, perfect.
Maybe larger on the screen too.
All right. So when we're talking about water frontage restrictions, so there's so this is what we were kind of talking about. So we'll say that this is the bank of the Salatna River, we'll say, for instance, right? So you are restricted to a 33% water frontage restriction. So, so you could not stake a parcel that looks like that, right? Because it is a whole lot more water frontage. I mean, that's, where we're probably looking at 40% water frontage, or maybe not quite that much, but it also violates the 2-to-1. What we're referring to before, so from the 2-to-1 restriction, we're going from midpoint to midpoint to midpoint to midpoint. So this distance right here may not be more than twice of what that distance is. And can you see the drawing on there?
Okay, yeah.
Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, so that's the 2-to-1. So when we're talking about the water frontage here, so you need to have your boundaries roughly perpendicular to a water body. So what that means is, like, we don't want somebody staking a parcel that comes out here like this, because that is going to close off all of that area over there, right? So what we're going to ask folks to do is to adjust their boundaries to come off roughly perpendicular from the water body. So you might have a little bit more of a trapezoidal shape, something like that. So what that means is that, so that's going to be your water frontage, that portion that's up against the water body, or more over that 100-foot setback from the water body. So that cannot exceed 33%, right? Or you're pretty close to 33%. So what that means is you might have to, so 33% of the total parcel perimeter, I should have noted that. So if you add up your water frontage plus, the boundary, of the length of the boundaries on your side and back boundaries, the total perimeter. And so it's that portion of your water body divided by the total perimeter. So what you might have to do is, if you're kind of pushing on that water body, you might just have to extend your back boundaries back a little bit to keep within that 33%. All right. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So where it gets a little tricky, oftentimes with the water frontage, is when you're getting into, the rivers, when it's doing stuff like this, right? When you get some of those really tight, twisty bends. So, we'll say that, this area up in here, that's about 50 acres or something like that within that peninsula, 60 acres, something like that. So not really huge. So the problem is, you cannot stake a parcel right across there and have that be your parcel, because that's, you're well above the water frontage restriction. That's like 60, 70% water frontage. Likewise, you cannot stake a parcel over here across that, because that has water frontage that's not contiguous, right? Same water body, but you have to have contiguous water frontage across it. So what that means, if you're going to stake up in this peninsula, you can stake up within here, but you might only be able to get, say, for instance, a 5-acre parcel that fits within there, because a 20-acre parcel, might violate the restrictions, right? So on a tight area like that, maybe 5 acres is the biggest you can.
Did anyone else lose video?
All right. My apologies, everybody. Had some technical difficulties there that were 100% my fault. So, so let's get back to this here real quick. And there we go. All right. Apologies. We're back in business. All right. So what we were getting at, I think we kind of got up to this part, but I'll just reiterate this. Anyway, if you have a kind of narrow peninsula right over here, if that peninsula is only, 40, 60 acres, somewhere in there, you may not be able to stake a 20-acre parcel in there because it's going to, violate the restrictions on there. So perhaps a 5-acre parcel might be all you're able to stake, or, a smaller one, right? So the whole principle behind this is we're trying to, get it to where, we can maximize that water frontage, maximize the opportunity for folks to stake it within those high value areas.
And so the back of that property would have to be 330 feet from.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So with that, so the question for those, online who might not have heard that, the question is, does the back of the property have to be within 330 feet? And the answer is yes. So on here, you're going to have that 100-foot staking setback all along the, the boundary there. So a parcel over here is going to have to be, so you're going to have to be 100 foot from the water body up over here. And so you have to be either up to or 330 feet away from the water. And then this distance over here has to be 330 feet or more away from the back as well. And so, again, kind of to illustrate what that means, or so it's kind of putting all those together. So you have a maximum of 33% of your total parcel perimeter can be along a water body. You have to be within the 2-to-1, and your parcel boundaries have to be roughly perpendicular. You can have frontage on only one water body and or public water body, and I'll get to that in just a second. So only one public water body, and it has to be contiguous frontage along that water body, so it cannot be discontiguous. So anyway, a lot of stuff to consider in there, but that's where those staking instructions being in the field will really kind of help you out. All right, so are there any questions about that specifically to water frontage for starters? Okay, well, let me get back to the presentation here real quick. All right. There we go. All right. All right. So those are going to be kind of the, so these are going to be kind of the big considerations anyway for this, for staking your parcel to make sure that you're adhering to these restrictions. A lot of this kind of stuff, I mean, if you were going out into the field, before you go out in the field, rather, as you're preparing, if you have an idea as to what you want to stake, where you want to stake, we highly encourage you again to come in and talk to us, and we'll walk you through this. If there's any kind of hidden pitfalls or something like that, that we see about that, we'll work with you in advance to let you know what to consider, and especially, when you're out in the field, how you need to address some of those things. Anyway, so we're more than happy to help you out. And then if you bring your stake instructions into the field with you, if you encounter some of these situations, that'll help you be prepared to deal with those. All right. Here we go. Okay. So finding a reference point. All right. So the gold standard for a reference point is going to be a monument. So if you refer to that survey key, that coordinate map, anyway, in your in the staking packet specific to your area, that'll show you where those monuments are going to be, right? So you can pull the coordinates directly from that. So the surveyors are not, the survey itself is not necessarily going to have a coordinate for each and every monument on there, but it'll give you a couple of them. You can go into Alaska Mapper or other programs. You can kind of zoom in, narrow down into that site and get an approximate coordinate for that. We don't want the published coordinate data on there. We want to know what your GPS says the location of that monument is. So once you get to your, once you find one of those monuments, just stand over that that monument with your GPS and take a coordinate of that monument of what it is. Also take a photograph of that monument. So a couple little tricks to that. So just like any, good for getting a monument to show up in the photo, since it's a silver monument anyway, it doesn't show up very well in a photograph. Just like any good Boy Scout injury, rub some dirt in it. Anyway, so if you pick up some dirt and rub it in there, you get that dirt into that embossing on that monument, and it'll show up a whole lot better in that photograph. Additionally, if you take your field notebook and a pencil or a crayon or something like that, you lay that over top of the monument, and you basically just etch across the top of that, and you can take an embossing of that monument. If all else fails, just take stand there right next to the monument and draw a picture of it in your field notes to where you can see what it is, right? So it's going to be something generally pretty simple. It's going to say whatever tract A ASLS 27 dash, or 2007-17 or whatever, something like that. Tract A, and it's going to show a line and, an angled point or something like that for the corner of that parcel. And so just draw what that is. So that way we know what monument it is that you're at. Anyway, so there's a variety of different monuments out there. So I'm going to move this just a little bit here so I can do some demonstration purposes. All right, for this. All right, so when you're going to find a monument, all right, let me stop sharing that real quick. All right, so this is a monument for folks unaware. So that's what the cap of a monument looks like. This is going to be a primary monument. So that's going to be the majority of what you're going to be seeing in the field. So it's going to be on a wide aluminum post, and it's got about a 3-inch aluminum cap on the top of it. So these are going to be buried down into the ground. So they're going to be sticking up usually about 4 to 6 inches or so above the ground. Depending on how long they've been in there and what kind of soil, they might be kind of jacked up and laying on a 45-degree angle, pushed out of the ground by the permafrost or something like that. But more importantly, anyway, with that, so that monument's going to be sitting on the ground, but they also have accessories, right? So this is going to be a bearing tree tag, right? So for any of your state monuments that are out there, and even your BLM monuments, like a cadastral monument or something like that, are going to have accessories, something like that. Your state monuments are typically going to have 3 of these bearing tree tags, 3 of these accessories in the vicinity of it. So typically, if the monument's going to be located here, you're going to have the bearing tree tags stuck on a tree in a way somewhere about eyeball height, somewhere within a couple of feet to maybe 50 feet away from it. So the trick is when you're trying to find one of these monuments, don't be just looking on the ground for the monument, look up around and into the trees, right? And you'll see one of these. On the tag here, you'll see that you're going to have the direction and the distance from this tag to this monument. So if you find one of these stuck to a tree, back up here, read the direction and the distance on it, and it might say 20 feet, something like that, right? These are going to be facing the monument. So if you just basically stand with this at your back and look 20 feet in the direction that's facing, it's probably going to be somewhere right in that vicinity, right? Otherwise, if you don't see it, you basically figure it's 20 feet, break out your compass anyway as to whatever that direction is, and that should lead you right to it. And then be looking up in the other trees, and you should find the other ones around them to help you triangulate down to where that monument is. So ultimately, that's what we're looking at for a monument. When you have that coordinate in there for that monument, if you're trying, if you prepared in advance, you pull the information off the survey plot and you're trying to find it, when you're trying to locate that monument, like locating that with your GPSs are great for getting you within pretty close proximity, but once they get into that fine distance, once you're down within just several feet of it, that needle is probably going to be hopping around all over the place. It's going to say you're 10 feet from it, then 3 feet from it. It's straight ahead of you. It's off to the right. It's back behind you now. It's going to be bouncing around all over the place. So my recommendation is, so first off, GPS is going to be very good about giving you direction on something when you're moving because it knows the direction that you're traveling. So as you're walking up to that, once you get within 30 feet, 40 feet, something like that, just take note of where that's at and the distance and direction that it says to go, stop, and start looking in that direction. Otherwise, you might just find yourself just wandering around in big circles all over the place trying to find the thing staring at your GPS. So get close and then start, to stop, start looking, and then looking up in the trees for where that's going to be at. And that'll help you find those monuments. All right, so a monument is going to be the gold standard for what we're ultimately looking at. All right, I'm going to hop back to the presentation here. Here, one second. Yeah. There we go. All right, so the monument's going to be the gold standard for what we're looking for because we know exactly where that's at. If you are unable to find a monument, So if you're going to be in pretty close proximity to where the existing private property is, it should not be an issue finding that. But if you're out there like in the wintertime in the snow or something, it's going to be a lot harder. Or if you're going to be somewhere, if you're staking way off in the boondocks and you're going to be a mile away from one of those, the information we get off of that's probably going to be garbage. If it's, down to 5.0 miles, from the monument, that doesn't give us much information, right? That's a wide range there. So you can use an alternate reference point. So what we're ultimately looking for is a permanent, prominent point anyway on there. So, perhaps at, mile 7.2 of the Salatna River, around basically this bend anyway, right? The northerly bend in the Salatna River. On the north bank is a 6-inch diameter birch tree that's flagged out in pink and orange flagging. And then, and you can actually take an extra nameplate anyway. So I'd prep, I should have mentioned this before. When you're prepping your nameplates, bring a couple extras, right? So you might have the need for a 5th, or rarely, very rarely, a 6th corner on your parcel. But, prep a couple in advance. Bring an extra one along for a reference point. If you don't find a monument, you can label one as a reference point, and then so you flag up that whatever I said, 8-inch diameter birch tree, flag the snot out of it, put your nameplate on it, and mark that as Tim's reference point. Anyway, so that's going to be how so set that up. We need a reference point because ultimately, if the information we're getting from your GPS or your meets and bounds survey or whatever isn't driving, we need to be able to send the surveyor to a known location and then go from that known location, whatever distance and direction, to your parcel. And so that's going to be the starting point for that. So, yeah, monument's the gold standard. If not, go for a permanent, prominent point, flag it up, and make that your monument. For instance, if you cannot find, so if you're going to be out there in the wintertime and you cannot find a monument, you're going to be staking somewhere in the vicinity of one. If you find a bearing tree but not a monument, you can use the bearing tree as your, as your monument, or as a reference point, excuse me. Anyway, so you can flag that up, put your nameplate on that, and note that it's the bearing tree at this distance and direction from this monument. So that way, maybe you didn't find the monument, but we know you're pretty darn close to it. So that helps. All right. Setting your corner post. So ultimately what we're going to be looking for is something that is going to be a sturdy, well-visible, well-defined corner post, right? So you can either use, you can bring your own corner post like we have here in the left picture anyway, which is a 4x4 post, painted up in hot pink anyway, flagged up with the nameplate on it. It is very visible, right? Or you can use native vegetation. You can take a tree and square it up, cut it down to, 5-6 feet tall, 4 feet tall, paint it up blaze orange anyway, flag it up with a whole bunch of flagging, and put your nameplate on that. It's going to have to be tall enough to where it sticks up above the snow to where other people can see it, at various different times of year. It's going to have to be sturdy enough to where it's going to last for 3 to 4 years anyway, between when you get done staking your parcel and when a surveyor gets out there and actually, surveys your parcel and puts your monuments in the ground. It's going to have to be sturdy enough to withstand perhaps a bear using as a scratching post because, they come up and it's bright and shiny and they're curious, right? So you can use a wide variety of different things. 4x4 post using native vegetation. Please don't use T-post or Carson post or something like that. We need something that's big and broad and wide and visible. If you're going to be bringing your own posts out there, make sure they're pounded into the ground with rebar, a T-post, something like that, wired to good native vegetation. Again, please do not use dead trees for that. But it's going to need to stay in the ground for at least 3 to 4 years. That's going to be marking out your property interest anyway during that time up to the point of the survey. And it's also going to let other surveyors during the staking period, other stakers during the survey staking period know that that's your interest. So make sure you flag it out there and it's good and sturdy. So if you're going to be using native vegetation, I'm just going to go back here real quick. That's not a bad example, but you don't need to cut down a 12-inch diameter tree and square it up to 4 inches anyway to make it. I've seen some massive trees turned into little 4x4 posts before. It's unnecessary to do that anyway. But I mean, that's actually not a bad example right there. But anyway, so that's what we're ultimately looking for. For brushing and flagging your lines anyway. So ultimately, again, what we're looking for is good flag to flag distance. We want to, in your photographs, be able to see that the line has been brushed out for line of sight, and you can see a flag every 10 to 20 feet down that line. So to that end, you don't need to clear a big wide trail all the way down there, nor do we want you to clear a big wide trail. We just need to be able to see flagging down there. And I get that's probably a little small, might be kind of hard to see, but in that photograph, you can see that there's low vegetation on the ground anyway, where it's been brushed out, but you can see that's been limbed out about eyeball height. Anyway, you can see that path through those trees. And if you look on those trees, you can see flagging, going down, I mean, at least 50, 80 feet, whatever ahead of that camera. So you can see that it's well flagged, as well identified as a trail. So bring plenty of flagging and make sure to over flag it so that other folks can see it and so that we can see it in the photos. But yeah, if you're going down the line and you're getting into some bigger trees and you have a 4-inch diameter larger tree right in the middle of where you're flagging your line, that's fine. Just leave it there. Just flag it up, whatever, to where we can see it, and then just keep on just kind of limit out and brushing out along that line to where you can see that line of sight. All right, so we're looking for about every 20 feet, 10 feet, whatever along the lines, just enough to where you can see it pretty well and readily identify it as a flagged line. You might find yourself out brushing in areas to where you're crossing like a wetland area or kind of a grassy kind of, knoll, a dell, a fen, whatever, something like that. An open area to where there's not a lot of vegetation. It's a good idea to bring along a couple of lath anyway. And so that way, if you're going 100 feet across like this kind of open grassy area, stick something up in there, stick those, those lath out there every 20 feet or so with some flagging on there to where we can see see that's there. They're going to be a little bit short, but at least you're marking out that boundary. So at least in the summertime, it should be pretty easy to see, especially when like the surveyor is going to be going out there. Again, avoid using any flagging that's green or yellow or blue. Like use hot pink, blaze orange, something like that. That's going to be good and readily visible on there. If you need to, when you're putting some of these things up, you can pile up rocks around it to keep like a lath up straight or something like that. But something to mark it out. In these areas that we're staking this year, I don't think you're going to have too much really open alpine area that you need to worry about there. But please do not use pin flags anyway. Those are not going to be very visible. Anyway, we need something a lot more substantial than that. It needs to be out there for a couple of years. During the lease period, it's going to be your responsibility to maintain that brush and flag line. So, if you happen to be out there visiting the area, using it, and you notice that like some of the flagging's missing in an area or something like that, it's getting faded, just dress it up anyway a little bit. So that way it's easily identifiable. And it also marks out your property interest as to, what your leasehold is. All right, so now we're getting into describing the parcel. All right, so we discussed measuring, the parcel a little bit. So you can use something like this reel tape, or you can use a knotted rope or something like that, a wide variety of options. Avoid something that's stretchy so that, when you're stretching between two people to measure off that distance, you don't want to be adding 10 feet every time you're doing it. But something to where you can get a pretty accurate measurement. If you're going to be in an area that has topography, again, we're looking for the true horizontal distance anyway on there. So we're not looking for, the distance over the topography. So if you're going to be on a hill, you can do something like this image illustrates, to where you have somebody basically stand on the rope on one side and you stretch out a horizontal and just kind of keep adding it up there to get the true horizontal distance. Otherwise, real simple way to do it is you can get yourself an inclinometer or something like that to measure the angle of the slope. I mean, heck, smartphones nowadays work as a pretty decent inclinometer. So you can basically, stand there at the bottom of the hill, looking up the hill, get that angle on that. And then you can, if you measure the on the ground distance anyway, and then what that angle is, you can do the trigonometry to figure out what that horizontal distance is anyway. But we're looking for that just kind of straight down view, true linear horizontal distance anyway, not the length over ground on there. Again, rangefinders might work pretty well for measuring distance, and especially if you have one of those slope calculating ones. But it's going to be hit or miss, anyway, as to just how accurate that's going to be. But it's a great way to kind of double check your work for something like that. All right. So once you put in your corner post and you're going to measure the distance between there, you also need to get the direction, right? So a couple of things. We're going to be looking for the cardinal or ordinal direction from your reference point to your corner number 1, and then again from your corner number 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and back to number 1. So that's your cardinal direction is going to be north, south, east, west, or, ordinal. So the northeast, southwest, northwest, southeast, something like that. So we want to know the general direction, right? And then we want to know the azimuth anyway. So ultimately the degrees, from north, the degrees to your parcel. So, or to your other corner. So that's going to be effectively your compass reading. So again, anyway, you can adjust for declination or not, which we'll cover, but we want to know the direction as closely as you can approximate it. We just need to know what you did. But my recommendation is once you're out there at your corner post, anyway, just you can set your compass right on top of your wooden post. Anyway, if you got a rebar post or metal T-post, it's probably going to affect the compass. But get an accurate reading, just looking right down your line or looking from your reference point to your corner number one, and we just need to get that azimuth to that. So I'm going to cover declination just very, very briefly, but so ultimately, and I don't want to get into this, too much because it can be rather confusing. The short and skinny of it is declination is the difference between the true north anyway and magnetic north, right? So your compass is going to point towards magnetic north. Depending on the area, like around here, it can be off by somewhere in the range of 20 degrees from true north. What we're ultimately looking at is for true. So if you know how to calculate that and you know how to either do the math on it or adjust your compass or whatever, by all means do that. If you don't, please don't bother with it. If you don't have the declination set appropriately, we're going to get a situation like this to where your parcel is entirely rotated, off from where it's supposed to be on your meets and bounds. So we're probably going to be able to figure that out. But just tell us what you did. If you did not adjust your compass, just tell us you didn't adjust it. If you did and you adjusted it by a certain amount, tell us what you adjusted it by, right? So in the case of, so for all these, for both of these areas, we have the declination listed there on the map anyway for that. So so you can adjust it by that amount, and I'm just going to show you here. So this is a sun tool compass. Anyway, so on here you have this little ring. Anyway, on here, and pardon me, I'm going to step away from the computer for a second. So you got a little ring on the back, and that little piece of silver bling that's attached to your neck chain, it's actually a tool for adjusting that. So there's a little screw right there, and you can adjust. So like this one, this compass is actually set up to be about 18, 19 degrees off to adjust for the declination. And so most of your compasses are going to be adjustable for declination. And here, I'll pop on the camera real quick and show you. But yeah, if you don't know, here, hold on a second. Oh, here we go. Dadgummit. Yeah, so for those folks, oh, sorry. Yeah, so what we're talking about, so like that compass, if you can see it, is not pointing to true north. Anyway, it's off by about 18, 19 degrees because it is adjustable on the back ring. There's that little screw there, if you can see it. And your little piece of bling on your lanyard, that's actually a little screwdriver tool to adjust it. So you can do that in advance. You do not have to adjust that in advance, but just let us know what you did so that we know how to calculate it. So incidentally, I just got to throw this out there because Justin would be very disappointed if I didn't. You know why a compass has a mirror on the inside of the compass? So you can see who's lost. All right. See, wouldn't you be disappointed if I didn't throw that joke in there? All right, perfect. All right. All right, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, the audience can be a little rough sometimes. All right. So yeah, so ultimately what we just need to know what it is that you did so we can calculate for it. So if you're not comfortable with adjusting it, not comfortable with doing the math, just let us know what you did or did not do. So when you are locating your corner post, we're going to ask for a coordinate of that corner post, right? So thus far, we've located the reference point. We've got a coordinate from the reference point, and we've indicated the distance and direction from your reference point to your corner number one. We're now standing at the corner number one, and we're going to collect a coordinate for that one as well. So my recommendation, so for using your GPS, just a couple of things. First off, if you take off out of Anchorage here and you show up in Slatina or Lost Creek and then flip on your GPS, it is going to take it a while to figure out where it's at, right? So it takes a while for it to calculate, find satellites, and find its position in the world, right? My recommendation is when when you pull up to the site in your boat, snow machine, whatever it is, just take out your GPS, flip it on, throw it on your backpack. You got a lot of stuff to do when you're out there for prepping, nameplates, doing whatever. Just let it sit there and warm up and find its location. Then once if you shut it off and turn it back on again, it's going to pick it up a whole lot quicker the next time. So likewise, when you're at your reference point, when you're at your corner number one or whatever it is that you're doing, you get your corner post set in and whatnot, and just set your GPS up on top of your corner post and let it sit there and calculate for a while before you take that waypoint. The longer that you let your GPS sit in a single location, it's going to correct its position. Over time, it's going to get much more accurate the longer it sits there. If you just flip on your GPS, wait for it to turn on, collect the waypoint real quick, it's going to be off by quite a bit probably. It has to figure out where it's at first. So let it warm up. Another little trick is if you find yourself in a situation that has a pretty high canopy, anyway, to where it can't see the satellite constellation, if you step outside, so even if your corner post is going to be back in the trees there where you don't have a very good view of the sky, if you walk out to the bank or something like that, or walk out to an open cleared area and let it sit there and calculate and find its location, it's going to have a better fix on those satellites, a better lock, so to speak, on those satellites when you walk back in underneath the canopy. So the more you can get that accurate information and get that better coordinate off of there, the better the information is going to be. So, but yeah, so once you get that, when you take that waypoint, make sure that you get a good GPS fix. So you mark that waypoint, label that appropriately, and we strongly recommend that you take a photo of your GPS screen right there at that coordinate, so you can reference back to it. If you have a transcription error or something like that, we can go back to that photo and see just exactly what it's at. All right. So from there, we're going to get into describing anyway the parcel. So we're going to ask for first off, has your compass been adjusted for declination? Just give us a yes or no. If you did do it, just tell us what it was. Or if you adjusted the azimuth afterwards. We're going to ask you to describe your GPS settings, right? So, what the datum was, what the coordinate, position was. Did you have a good fix on there? And then we're going to ask you to list the GPS operator information. So if you're out there with somebody else staking a parcel, and you have somebody else that was operating the GPS that's not you, the applicant of this parcel, just let us know. That's totally fine. We just, if there's somebody that we can talk to that can give us that useful information about how the data was collected, if there's a question, that's ultimately just what we're looking for, is just somebody to talk to who knows how it was collected. From there, we're going to ask you to note the date that the parcel was staked on there. We're going to get into the dates a little bit more, but so we're going to ask you to, so once you start staking, to finish up the staking and submit your application within 14 days of when you complete your staking. And so that's so that we know what flagging and brushing out there is out there in the field. Really, if you are going to go out there and start staking, just let us know in advance. You're going to go out there and start staking. Maybe let us know where you're going. If you've gone out there and started staking but haven't finished, if you just give us a call and say, hey, we went out there, we started staking, we're in this location, we got a couple lines brushed, but we didn't get finished. We're going to head out there in a couple of weeks and do it again. Wrap it up, just so we have some idea what's going to happen, what's going on in the field out there. So one of the restrictions is that you cannot stake across any brushed or flagged line out there in the field without authorization, right? So if somebody calls up anyway, and they call up and they say, hey, Justin, I'm out here in Salatina, I selected my site, I went out here, there's this line that's brushed and flagged. It goes a couple hundred feet out in the woods, but there's no corner post, no information, no labels, nothing, nobody else in the area. Can I stake across it? Justin's probably going to say something like, well, call me back in 14 days and I'll let you know. Anyway, so if you let us know that you're out there and say, hey, I'm staking in this area, we can call up there. We can say, oh yeah, John's staking that parcel. Don't worry about it. Well, whatever. Yeah, this is more or less where he's going to be staking. He's not done yet. So no, you cannot stake across that line, whatever. So
Scary sound.
That was a less scary sound. It's letting me know that we have a workshop today at 10 a.m. Okay, so that was just a notification. All right. All right, so it's then going to ask for the PLSS, the Public Land Survey System. So if you look on your staking map, you will see on there, there's a couple different ones. Here, I'm going to borrow one here real quick.
A couple. If you want to look at the brochure, if you don't have something with you. All these.
All right, and so I'm going to pop up this one here real quick, and sorry. All right, so if you look on your staking map, and so I've got Slatina up here right now. So you'll notice that on the staking map, you have this S028N035W, right? What that stands for is that is going to be within the Seward Meridian. It is going to be Township 28 North and Range 35 West, right? So, say for instance, if you staked over here, if you can see where my cursor is, right over here, kind of the northeast kind of portion of the map right here, within section 35, what that's going to be is that PLSS, what we're asking for on that application. Your parcel, if it's right along the river over here, is going to be in section 35. It's going to be in Township 28 North, Range 35 West. Likewise, if you were staking, say, down over here where about that arrow is, anyway, that one's going to be in the Seward Meridian, Township 27 North, Range 35 West, Section 15 in this case. So that's ultimately what we're looking at. If you're unsure about what to put on there with the lease application, just hold off, and then when you come in to submit it, or just call us up and show us where it's at, and we'll go ahead and we'll help you out with that, getting that in there. But that's what the PLSS is. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to ask you the acreage. So to the best of your ability, tell us what how many acres you staked in there, and then we're going to ask about just general information for your parcel. Did you stake over, next to, or within any of these things? So are there any improvements, the cabin, airstrip, something like that, trails, water, etc. So one of the staking requirements is that you may not stake within 330 feet of an existing improvement. I mean, like outside of like something on private property, without prior authorization. The reason being, if there's some random cabin out there that's not listed on the map or something like that, we don't know what the situation is. It could be a trapping cabin that just for whatever reason isn't in the records. It could be a trespass cabin. It could be some historic site, something like that. We need to figure that out, what that is, before we give you authorization to stake over, around it, or next to it. So you have to be 330 feet away from those improvements. If there is a trail or a water body somewhere in there, just indicate whether or not you staked, up next to it, if you used it for a boundary, if you staked over it. So generically, when it comes to water bodies, which I think the only public water bodies that we have in this offering is within Slatina, and that's going to be the Kuskokwim, Slatina, First Fork, Slatina. Water bodies, if there's any water bodies that are 10 feet wide or wider, they're considered a public water body. So for streams, or for lakes or ponds, 10 acres in size or larger. So in Slatina, if you come across, like, say, one of those oxbow, lakes anyway, and it looks like it's, it might be 10 acres in size or larger, that might be considered at the time of survey to be a public water body. Which is going to come into account when you're calculating your water frontage restriction and what water what water frontage you can have, because you cannot have water frontage on more than one water body. All the ones that are in there, I think they're all smaller, less than 10 acres. We haven't identified any, but if you come across a stream or that looks like it's, say, on the verge of 10 acres, be very cautious about that. But just let us know, take lots of photos of it, give us whatever information you can, and we'll try to work to make sure we're not going to run into any surprises on that one. All right, then we're going to ask about accessing the parcel, right? So how did you access it? So for, in the case of the Slatina offering, it's going to be probably pretty obvious that, you're going to pull up to the bank and go up to the parcel from there. However, if there is a particular part on the parcel, that particular part of that water frontage, that's kind of the best access to the parcel, we want to know about that. So if we ultimately have to adjust your parcel, we can maintain that access within your parcel. For the Lost Creek folks, access is going to be a lot more important anyway, to describe that full access of how you got there. There are going to be some existing trails within the Lost Creek from folks accessing their current parcels. But if you go out there, if you're relying on access, coming up, whatever, off the Dalton Highway, crossing the taps, and then going out some ridge line to get to your parcel, we want to know where that access is, because if somebody stakes across that access, we want to make sure that we've reserved that through their parcel so that you still have access to yours. So please identify where your access is on there. Give us photos of that. Anyway, give us any information about your access you can. All right. From there, we're going to ask you to describe your reference point. And so we're going to ask for the coordinate of it, what you use for a reference point. Is it a monument? is an Alaska State Land Survey monument, is a BLM monument, whatever that is. Attach the photographs, give us all that information, including a coordinate for that. All right, so from there, you are going to describe the distance, the direction, the cardinal or ordinal direction, and your azimuth from your reference point to your corner number 1. Anyway, and so that's going to be as simple as just kind of as it shows here. It's going to be, a distance of 713 feet, heading to southeast for, at a direction of, say, 120 degrees to my corner number 1. Anyway, and then once you get to corner number 1, describe your corner number 1. Is it a 4x4 post? Is it a birch tree that you cut down and squared up and painted orange, right? Is it a spruce tree? Did you lash a 4x4 post to an altar, something like that? Describe what your corner post is. All right, so from there, we're going to, I'll knock that off. All right, so from there, you're going to need a couple of photographs of your corner post here. And so I'm going to kind of show you the best I can what we're looking for. So, you know what? I'm going to turn this around. Everybody, you want to say hi to the audience here real quick? So, all right. All right, so this is our corner post right here. So we're going to need a couple of different photographs. I want to demonstrate this to kind of show you what we're looking at, right? So if this is our corner post right here, so we're going to need a close-up of your nameplate, right? So you're going to get right up on your corner post, and you're going to get a photograph of that corner post nameplate where you can see that it's legible, the writing on your nameplate, right? Then you're going to back up, and you're going to back up, 20, 30 feet away from that, whatever it's going to be, and you're going to take a photo of just the area view. We want to see the area surrounding that corner post to where we can see kind of like what kind of setting it's in there, right? Then we would like to see a picture. So we're going to say, for instance, that this is my corner number 1, and then back this way is to corner number 2. We want a photo that's looking down down the line from corner post number 1 to corner post number 2. And then we'll say 3 is going to be over there. 4 is going to be back in this direction. So we want a photo looking down the line from corner number 1 back to corner number 4 again. So at every corner post, we want a close-up of the nameplate, an area view, and then from that corner post looking towards the corner post in either direction, right? So when you're out there in the field, you're going to have to keep track of what your which corner posts are which, right? Which pictures are which. And so one really easy way to do that is when you're taking the photo, you can, if you have a staking assistant, we always joke around about flipping gang signs out in the woods, right? So you can take a photo that shows that we're standing here at corner number 1 and corner number 2 is back here, right? Or likewise, if it's like, corner number 2 and we're looking at 3, corner number 2 is up here, 3 is back over here. So it's really easy for us to see in that photo what it is. It's very easy for you to keep track of that. Alternatively, you can just take a piece of paper, write a note on there, and then stick it to your corner post or hold it up, while you take that photo, whatever it is. But just so you can keep track of what that is. Because ultimately, if we end up, if you turn in a lease application, we've got 3 photos of corner number 3 and nothing else. Well, that's going to be insufficient. So we need to make sure you got the photos that you need. All right. At this point, it would also be good to take a photo of your GPS with that waypoint showing up on there so we can see what photo that is. What corner that is. See the coordinate on there, and then we can look at it right there and see the coordinate as labeled on there on the GPS. So take a photo of your GPS as well. Anyway, and then we're going to ask you to, there we go, describe your photographs, right? So this is going to be very important when you submit your photographs to us. So you can, so if you're going to be coming into the office, you can print them out anyway and have them all printed out and hand those to them that way. You can email them to us. You can maybe, if you give them to us on like or DVD is still a thing, CDs. I mean, it's probably not. I don't even know if we have a reader anymore. If you give us a thumb drive, for it, we will do our best to get you the thumb drive back, but anyway, just it's probably going to be a while anyway for that at the very least. But if we have those digitally, we need to make sure that whatever those photos are adequately labeled. If we just get a a whole pile of photos that say IMG 3762781, it's going to mean absolutely nothing to us. They need to be labeled that this is corner number 1 nameplate, corner number 2, or corner number 1 area view, etc. Corner number 1 looking at corner number 2, etc. Something like that.
Ideally, that would be on the digital file as the name, like
Right.
what it is.
Perfect. So yeah, anyway, so make sure they're adequately labeled. If you're printing them out, just write there. If you have them professionally developed, write it on the back of the photo. If you're printing them out on paper, write it right there on the paper, just so that way we know which ones are which. All right, and then from there, we're going to ask you to describe your preferred building site. So this does not have to be a building site. This if you mark a preferred building site, you don't have to build there. You don't even have to build anything at all. The preferred building site is ultimately if there is a part of your parcel that is your favorite part, right? It's just that is the part of the parcel that's most important to you. If you tell us what that is, if we have to adjust your parcel for some reason, for acreage or for other staking requirements or something like that, we will do our best to make sure that that is within the parcel, right? So this is also a good point to note that we have, so your parcels are going to be subject to various easements, restrictions, that sort of thing, right? So we already talked about section line easements, 100 foot, 50 foot either side, 60 foot easements for existing trails. Additionally, your parcel boundaries are going to have a 30-foot interior lot line easement. Anyway, so you're going to have a 30-foot easement all the way around. So you cannot build within or otherwise block any of those easements. So just make sure that, as you're setting up your parcel, that wherever you plan to build or whatever that kind of, spot that you really want is going to be towards the interior and away from those things to where it's actually going to be usable. Anyway, that's ultimately what we're looking for that preferred building site is that important part to you. All right. And so wrapping up just real quick here, and then we'll take another break. So mapping your parcel, we're going to ask you to do 2 different things. So one is to submit a copy of the staking map, and you can even zoom in like in a printout, just kind of a zoomed in portion of the staking map with your parcel on there, just drawn on as to where that is, because we want to see kind of how that fits in with the greater scheme of things going on within the area. So list that on the staking map. The next one is to do a sketch plat. So on the sketch plat, this is going to be you drawing and describing in detail your parcel and everything in the vicinity of your parcel. So if you note the outer boundary of that by the scale of the bottom there, this is a 1 mile by 1 mile square, right? So we're going to ask you to try and keep within that scale to the best of your ability, but that can represent the entire section, or maybe the center of that is a section corner. So there's 4 different sections, whatever it is. But that's the ultimately the scale that we're looking for. We're going to ask you to draw on your reference point, whatever you use for that reference point, and then label the distance and direction from your reference point to your corner number 1. So it's off. I can't really see exactly what that is, but at any rate, so in this case, we'll say that's 210 degrees for 1,320 feet from the reference point to that corner number 1. And then from there, we're going to ask you to describe the direction and distance from that to all of the other corners. So label on your sketch plat the distance and direction from your corner number 1 to your corner number 2, distance and direction from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then back to number 1 again, right? We're going to ask you to just draw on there anything else that's in the vicinity. So if there's a trail nearby, a stream, another parcel, if you're out there and there's an existing piece of private property, or it's already surveyed, you know what that is, just list that it's tract A or it's Joe Bubba's parcel or whatever it might be, right? If you're along a water body, list that, just draw and describe that water body there. If there's other things, like if you cross a little stream or a rock outcropping or something like that, that's something of note, just go ahead and describe that on the parcel. We just want to know, what's going on in the area. Anyway, and then we're also going to ask the proposed access. So for Slatina, it's, if it's just anywhere along the beach, that's fine. For Lost Creek, please, be judicious about actually showing how it is that you're going up in there, because we want to make sure to capture that as the area develops there. Please put on the preferred building site or that important part on the parcel. And then any of this information or the examples for how to do this is going to be in the staking instructions for how to list that. All right, so with that, so that pretty much wraps up the in the field part anyway. And so next we're going to get into, the measuring and describing the parcel in the field. Next, we're going to get into photographs. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. And then unless, does anybody have any questions of anything we've covered thus far before we take a break? Okay, let's do about like 5
Can I
minutes
ask
real quick.
Can I ask a quick
Yes.
question on Lost
Please.
Creek?
Yes.
With the plan of the Dalton Highway being moved, being redesigned.
Yep.
Is it still the required, the 30 feet or whatever the setback is when we plat it based on the fact that the highway exists now? Is that correct?
Correct. It's still, yes. Yeah, you're still subject to the setback from the Dalton Highway. The plan is to reroute that in 2029, and we'll get into the details on that a little bit later. But for the time being, that's still the requirement. And yeah, that's not going to be changing. So it's the requirement for the setback from the Dalton Highway is not going to change.
And we can use existing property lines, because I know in the Lost Creek area, there are some parcels that have already been staked out in that area as one of our property lines.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, you can use an existing surveyed parcel as a property, so you can share that boundary with them. And so you, since it is an existing boundary, you have to be either up to or 330 feet away. So you can use that as an adjacent boundary. And likewise, if there's another, I mean, if just for other reference, if there's another staked parcel out there, so you can use that staked boundary as your boundary as well, and just share the load on that one. But you also have to be up to or 330 feet away from that other boundary.
Explain that to me, meaning your structure has to be 330 feet away from that boundary line?
Nope. Your parcel itself. So you know what? Since I'm an excellent drawer, I'm gonna draw you a picture. So all right, let me explain that. All right, so this is a trail, road, whatever that, trail, river, something like that, right? So if there's an existing parcel over here and you want to stake over in this area, you either have to stake up next to it and share this boundary with them, or you have to stake a minimum of 330 feet away from that parcel. And so make sure that that's at least 330. So ultimately what we're looking to avoid is we just don't want somebody to go up here and stake
50 feet and
100.
then have a strange little, okay.
Right. Yeah. So we're trying to avoid those little unmanageable slivers in between. So.
Perfect. I was looking at the map and there's a couple pieces that already have property lines and I'm like, great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to use those. Absolutely. Yeah. If there's other survey boundaries, that's, a quarter of your property line that you don't have to brush.
Exactly.
So, yep. All right. Perfect. All right. Anybody else or any other questions? Nothing? All right. Sounds good. Well, yeah, let's take a brief break and we'll meet back here in about 5 minutes. All right, we are back from the break here. All right, so yeah, so I wanted to cover. So I apologize, completely forgot to do this after the last break there, but I wanted to cover the um, Alaska Mapper anyway program here real quick, and so I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to it real quick as to how that works. And so on here, there's the so this is our DNR web page, and I had a pop up that I denied, and I think it broke the web page for me. So anyway, but the things are still in the same general place. So if you go to this is just dnr.alaska.gov.
Put a link in the Staker resources page as well. If you're looking for the link to the user guide or Alaska Mapper.
Perfect. Okay. And if you didn't hear that, just put a link in the resources guide for that. So it's in there for the web page and Mapper. So if you go to research, and then you can go to Alaska Mapper, and it's going to pop up the Alaska Mapper page. A couple of things on here. There is a right here on the page, there is a user guide that there's a link to a user guide, a story map, which I have not used, so I don't know exactly how that works. But there's also a link to the Public Information Center, because those folks can help you do that. Additionally, if you want to call us up, I mean, whether Justin, Brandon, Sandy, myself, or our folks up in Fairbanks, we are more than happy to help walk you through this program and how to use it. Anyway, if you come into the office, we have computers there in the office that you can, like at the Public Information Centers, you can hop on and you can just sit there and use it right there. And if you have questions, we're there to help. So we're open to be a resource for you. So you can log into Alaska Mapper with, with your My Alaska ID, same thing you use for putting in for draw hunts or, applying for the PFD or any of that kind of stuff. You don't have to. I don't even log into Alaska Mapper. It's just if you want to save a map and not have to go back to it. But so it'll bring you to this page. So in the interest of just kind of bandwidth, I'm going to do a very, very brief kind of search here before flipping it on there. But from this page, you can pick whichever map you want. The map that's going to be most applicable to us is probably going to be this land estate map, but I'll go through those in a second. Before we get there, I'm just going to do a real simple search here, and I'm going to go click on the magnifying glass over here on the left-hand side. I'm going to change this to Alaska place name, and I am going to plug in Salatna. Right, and then once that pops up, it's going to think about it, and then Salatna River is what we're looking for. The mountain would do as good as close to. And then I'm just going to click on View Feature. So that's going to take us right to the mouth of the Salatna River in this case. Right. So I did that before selecting the map just because I didn't want to wait for everything to load. But if you go to this kind of, the kind of the open map kind of page there, we are going to select which map we want to take a look at. So just for reference, the base map gives you just very generalized information. The land estate is what we're going to be most interested in, because that shows us what is state-owned land, what's not state-owned land. And then it's going to show us any surface resources. So if there's any leases or permits or trapping cabins or any of that kind of stuff, easements, anything like that on the land. Mineral estate is for mining stuff. Ownership is just generalized ownership as to who owns what. The surface classification is going to be, that's part of our area planning process. It's very similar to like comprehensive plans, but on statewide kind of basis. And then water estate is going to be for things like water rights and stuff like that. So we're going to go to land estate anyway, and that's going to pop up here as soon as it loads. It's going to show the project area. The gray land is going to be everything that's state-owned land. If it's not gray, it is not state, nor has it ever been state. But then this is also going to show where these conveyed parcels are. That's kind of in the dark magenta color. If there's parcels that are surveyed and available for sale in the future, they're going to be in kind of a neon greenish kind of color. But anyway, a bunch of different things in here. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you just a couple of tools here real quick. And I'm going to kind of pan off kind of to the north part of the project area here for Salatna. So there's a couple of different options here. You can, I'm going to turn off a layer here real quick. So to get that gray layer off the background to make things a little bit easier to see, you can turn on and off the layers. And I'm going to turn off the, one more down. This state tentatively approved or patented is going to be take off that gray layer so you can see the imagery. So you can change the imagery here. Right now we're looking at imagery with the topo background. So it shows you the topography in here. One of my favorite imagery layers is this ArcGIS World Imagery. It has a really good, in my opinion, Probably one of the better imageries for the area, so you can take a look at that. But just to introduce you to a couple of the tools, right? So if you see this bar up here in kind of the upper right, that's going to give you the coordinates. So wherever your cursor is, it's going to give you a rough coordinate for that location. It's kind of going to be a little hard to see in the blue there, but right here, you can see that DD is set for decimal degrees. You can select that and change it to degrees, decimal minutes, or click it again for degrees, minutes, seconds. Anyway, and so depending on how your GPS is set up, if we're going to use this to select coordinates, make sure you just select the right coordinate, or you can just do the math afterwards, up to you. But that'll give you a coordinate for wherever you're at. There's a measurement tool. So if you wanted to kind of figure out basically kind of what actually, let me zoom in just a little bit here first. If you wanted to kind of figure out that you want to stake a parcel in this area and you want to figure out where 330 feet away from this parcel is, because you don't want to be right up next to them, but you kind of want to be on the slough off the Kuskokwim, you can go over here, go to length, and you can set this to, meters or standard. And so we're just going to go over here. We're going to say, I want to be 330 feet away from that parcel. So that's, right about there, right? And so that's the 330 feet mark. Oh, man, I double clicked. Anyway, so we can see about where it's at. All right, so that's 330 feet. So then we want to measure what's going to be roughly 100 feet from, from ordinary high water mark. So it's going to be somewhere in there-ish. Anyway, so that gives us a rough estimate. All right. So I want to map out a parcel in here, and I want to see about getting something that is, 10 acres, anyway, we'll say. So roughly over here, that's, that was 330 feet away. And so 10 acres is going to look something like, let's try this. Something like that. Oh, well, okay. So I messed that up already because I did not change that to acres. There we go. Which I could do the math into square feet, but I don't want to. All right. So that's 6.4 acres in there. So I'd have to go a little bit larger. So I could, redo that to get back to 6.4. Anyway, if you wanted to, you can go. So this tool up here in the upper left, anyway, you can query by point, line, or polygon. And ultimately, that's a query tool anyway. So it allows you, to put a point on there, and you go to this run query, and you can see all the layers that are up underneath that. So you can look at the state land, the project area for, what's the slant area, and anything else that's covered under that point or within that polygon. But I'm going to go over here, and just for the sake of marking something, I'm going to put a point down over here. We'll say point down over here. Go over here, something like this, and something like that. All right, so I got 4 points in there. And so now let's go back to that measurement tool, and we can, so first off, before we even measure anything, I can get a rough coordinate in that little box on the upper right as to about where that cursor's at. I can go over here and kind of measure between the points and figure that. All right, so that's about 6.11 acres anyway. So if I wanted 10, I'd have to go a little bit bigger, but that's about what I'd be looking at there. So a couple of tools there, and you can always erase everything. Just you can double click that little eraser right there. But so like if you're trying to figure out kind of how to work around topography, on something. So say for instance, I wanted to go down over here, and I think I'm going to stake. I like. Actually, that's probably outside of the area. So I want to stake something right down here. So I can go in here and figure out. Oops. Sorry, keep right clicking. Touchpads. All right. So I need to figure out if I want to stake. I really like this part right here. I mean, it looks like some nice trees over here. That looks like a pretty nice spot. So I need to figure out. So I know that there's going to be a 100-foot building setback from the Slatina, and I need to be 330 feet away from that. So I'm going to figure out kind of where that's at over here. And so I'm going to put it in. So right over here. Yeah, so that's going to be pretty tight trying to get something in there. So I'm going to be pretty close. So I'm probably going to have to scoot over down this way a little bit more. So let's try that again. And let's go. Yeah, let's see, 330 feet. Yeah, so somewhere in there. So I'm going to have, that's 320 feet. So that's getting pretty close. So let's see what kind of parcel I can get in there. So I'm going to come off over here. There's going to be a 100-foot building setback anyway on here, but I'm just going to go right up to the water. go perpendicular off the water body, and we'll say something like, well, I put that right up on the water body, but that's 3.44 acres. So I'm going to have to probably extend this out this way a little bit, right? So we're going to start again. I'm going to go over here, kind of come back to that 330-foot mark, come back. I'm going to probably have to go back a little bit further over here, and then see 4.5. Yeah, so that's going to be, I'm going to have to go a little bit larger still. But anyway, so you can kind of see how you can use that tool to kind of map out around the geography, around the topography rather, anyway, and kind of get a game plan for what you might be doing. And once you get that in there, you can go along here and get approximate coordinates, and you can use that to kind of map it out, make some decisions on there. So anyway, it's a useful tool. You can swap around here between various different imagery. I think that's probably going to be about the best, but you can go to like Bing imagery. That looks like it's about the same. Some of these have, let's see here. Where's the, yeah, that looks pretty similar anyway. But yeah, there's various different options for imagery. You can kind of pop around in. So there's the kind of the false color imagery if you want to see what the vegetation is a little bit better, various things like that. But anyway, that's the tool in a nutshell. It'll kind of help you kind of plan out in advance what you're looking for acreage, access, kind of working around some of the topography or field conditions, any of that kind of stuff. So, all right. Any questions on Alaska Mapper at all? Okay. All right. Let me check one thing here real quick. All right. All right. So we'll get back into that. So, so getting to kind of where we left off. All right. So we kind of covered a little bit about the background of the program. We talked about printing out all your materials, reviewing it, doing the research on the area, using something like Alaska Mapper, kind of planning ahead for what you're going to do. You need to collect all of your materials, get your corner post, your whatever you're going to be used for measuring, your GPSs, have redundancy for everything, get all your safety equipment, get out in the field. You need to locate a reference point. You need to capture the coordinate for that reference point. If you're going to not be using a monument, you can create your own, but make sure it's a permanent, prominent point. Flag it up, put your post on it, get a good location information. Then you're going to get the distance and direction from your reference point to your corner number one. Then you're going to go around, you're going to collect all the information about your corner number one, the coordinate, and then the describe that on your lease application that you're taking out there as for notes in the field. And then collect the distance and direction from your corner number 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 back to your number 1, and collect all that information, describe everything in there. And now it's time for the photographs. So for the photographs, we're just going to kind of cover what all is required real quick here. So access route. So again, that's going to be, so for Lost Creek, that's going to be pretty important to where, you're kind of mapping out the whole route from, from the Dalton Highway, to how you're getting there. So we know what you're planning on using for access. The reference point. So whatever monument you've located, bearing tree, or if you're going to be using your, creating your own reference point. And so, if you can get a close up of it, and then maybe an area view, get a good description, maybe draw a picture of the monument. You're going to need a close up of your nameplate. And we need to be able to see in the photograph that writing on there, make sure it's legible, make sure to trace over your nameplates with a permanent marker so we can see the writing on there. And then your corner post. So we're going to need a couple different ones. So we're going to need that in addition to the nameplate, we need an area view, kind of like you see on the top, so we can see your corner post sitting out here. And then we want to be able to tell that you are on corner post number 1 here, and we're looking down the line towards corner post number 2. So we can see where we're at, and we want to be able to see the brushed and flagged lines going down there. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier. The picture's a little bit grainy, but you can see that there is a clear brush line going down through there. So it's not mowed or anything like that. There's underbrush, but you can see that clear flagging. Anyway, going down there, you can see flag to flag. It's flagged every, flagging every 10 to 20 feet there. Or if there's a big tree in the middle, you just, the tree is flagged, but you can see that there's flagging extending down, beyond that tree. You can just leave the tree there. All right, and then if there's any other features anyway in the area, such that if you're using another property boundary as a as your boundary, if there's going to be a trail there, a water body, something like that. So like in this case, it might be a little difficult to see on the photo, but there's a tiny little creek, in front of the ATV there. It's tiny. It's far less than 10 feet wide, but we know there's a creek there, so we just so we know about it. No surprises. Anyway, so take photos of any interesting or important features. And then a photo of your GPS. So so a photo of the settings of your GPS, so we know how it was actually set up to begin with, what the coordinate system is, what the coordinate format's going to be, the datum. And then if you take a photo of your GPS at each and every corner, every time we're taking a coordinate, then we can see right there on the screen, what that coordinate is right there on the screen of the GPS. All right. So now, after collecting all the information, collecting all your photographs, all the measurements and everything, you're going to get back in from the field and you're going to complete your lease application. Yes, sir.
Just a quick photo question. Are you, bro, like if I brought a drone and do like drone photos or videos, like are you all good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so certainly as additional information, that is fantastic. Yeah, we've had photo folks that have done like flown the parcel with a drone and shown us a great overview,
Exactly.
overhead view. That's fantastic. Yeah, any information we can get, that's awesome. Yeah, the more information, definitely the better. So, yeah, so completing the lease application. All right, so get back in from the field, get back home, take that, take a fresh, cleanly printed copy without all the mosquito guts and everything on there and start filling that out. So yeah, at the time, bring out all your field notes. It's a great opportunity to sit down with whoever is helping you in the field so you can kind of work together to make sure you didn't forget anything. But fill out all that, the meets and bounds information, attach your photographs, make sure all the photographs are properly labeled on there so we know which ones they are. And once you're all ready to go, you can sign the application and you can send it to us or bring it in. I highly recommend, if you have the opportunity, come into the office and like sit down with us and we'll help you, make sure that everything's filled out correctly, and then if there's, something you need to do, you can head back home, bring it in later, right? So plan ahead for plenty of time to go out there and complete that application. So when you're ready to submit it, you're going to submit it with a $240 application fee for it. Include all your photographs and a copy of the map with that on there. All right. So when submitting your lease, so for folks that are going out at the beginning of staking anyway, so you can go out, you can start staking at beginning on 8 a.m. on March 6th is when you can start. So you can go out there, you can camp in the area, you can wander around the area, you can wander the perimeter, you can do all that, but you just may not put in any corner post, brush flag, or in any way mark that boundary prior to 8 a.m. on March 6th. You can, if you would like to, come in as early as March 9th to submit your lease application. So we will begin accepting lease applications on March 9th at 10 a.m. And so we can take them, in person. It's not going to be enough time to get there by mail. Anyway, we have fax listed on here, but fax really doesn't really work for the lease application. Just email it to us. If you're going to be if you're going to be sending it in by email, we need the original application within 15 days of receiving that email from the emailed copy. But if you want to submit right at the very beginning of the staking period, you can do so, and there's going to be a priority of service drawing, which we'll explain in just a minute. But regardless, whenever you're submitting your application, we again ask that you submit it within 14 days of completing staking, or just let us know if you're out there once you've started staking, if you've completed or what you've got done, so we know what's going on in the field, which we've covered. All right, so we have a parcel seniority that is set up by whoever has their application submitted first has priority for modifications, right? This very, very rarely ever comes into play. But anyway, if something happens to where, say, for instance, you staked a parcel and you were staking at, right at, say, 5 acres anyway, and it turns out you staked 4.8 acres. So you weren't quite enough. So we're going to have to expand your parcel. But now you've got a parcel to the east anyway that's staked before you and a parcel to the west that's staked after you. Anyway, we are going to adjust your parcel to the west. Anyway, just because that person has less seniority than you do, than your other neighbor, so to speak, right? It very rarely comes into play, that any of that happens. But that's what we're talking about when we say parcel seniority, just by whoever staked first. But when you're out there, if you find other folks out there, we highly encourage that, if you're working together, to make sure both of you get what you want. So you can work together. So don't rely on us to fix your problems for you, is what I'm getting at. But if you're going to be submitting at the very beginning of the staking period, we have what's known as a priority service drawing. So the way that works is if we have, so like we'll be in the office at 8 a.m. on March 9th, ready to submit, ready to accept lease applications, right? So if, Justin and company are going to be there in Anchorage, and we're going to be up there in Fairbanks on the 9th. If we have folks come in between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., we will review the application, make sure they're complete, make sure you've got all your photos, everything's filled out, you've got all your documentation. And if everything is complete, so prior to 10 a.m., it'll basically just, kind of go into a pile, right? At 10 a.m., like I'll call up Justin, or Justin will call me up and say, hey, do you have anybody in the office? They're from Slatina or from Lost Creek or whatever. And if it's a yes, we'll take, all the Slatina people or all the Lost Creek people, throw the names in the hat, and we're going to draw them out, by order of whose application gets processed first. So that sets the priority for it. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I think we did a drawing once. So anyway, it's not all that common, but for folks that are going out, at the very beginning, that's how we manage that. So, when you're submitting your photos, so generically, if you're going to be, mailing it in, you can mail in all your photos with it. If you're going to be emailing the photos, you might need to email them to us a couple of times anyway, or in a couple of different emails because of the file size, on those. But again, please make sure everything's properly labeled, or if it's printed out, that everything's properly labeled on that one. Yes, sir.
Google Drive or anything sent through any like a Google file sharing thing, sometimes we aren't able to actually access those.
Yeah.
So the email works better.
All right. Yeah. And just in case folks couldn't hear that. Yeah. So the file sharing stuff like Google Drive doesn't usually work for us. So we can't access those through the state system.
But if we get those, we'll let you know, and we'll just ask you to email them. So.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So you have up until so for all the winners anyway. So everybody who is a winner may start staking as early as 8 a.m. on March 6th, and you have up until July 20th. You should be at 4 p.m. to submit a completed lease application, right? So what that means is that that your application has to be into our office, reviewed, paid for, 100% signed, and 100% complete and date stamped no later than 4 p.m. Right? So if you show up in the office at 3:30 with a blank application, you're not going to get it in time. It's just not going to happen. So plan ahead, come in a couple of days early, meet with us, and get all that stuff done, because it's a hard deadline for July 20th at 4 p.m. to accept that lease application. So after July 20th, anyway, so after July 20th, we're going to give the alternates an opportunity to stake. So if you have not used your authorization by July 20th, you're going to lose that authorization, and those authorizations goes to the alternates, and then the alternates are going to have from then until July 28th to submit their lease application. So July 28th at 4 p.m. if there's any alternates out there. Again, since we're going to be getting authorizations throughout the staking period, please check back in anyway to see what the on that staking map to see what's out there in the field anyway before we go out there and stake. All right. So when you're staking your application, use that checklist. Make sure you prepare the materials in advance. Come and talk to us. We're a great resource to help you out. But yeah, when you're out there, make sure you follow all the rules, get everything you need to do, document the heck out of it, take lots of notes, make sure everything's properly labeled, make sure you can get your lines fully brushed and flagged, and make sure that the photographs show that brushing and flagging in there, and then submit your lease application. So a couple of things that'll cause a lease application to be denied are some of these. So insufficient photos, that's probably one of the biggest ones, right? And so insufficient, either that you're either missing photos or the photos don't adequately show what they need to. So if your nameplates are illegible and we can't see what's on the nameplates, or if we see that there's a post over here and we can't tell that the line is brushed or flagged properly down there, we're going to have to ask you to go back out and either redo it or take additional photos anyway, so we can show that that's been done. If you're staked over a within a setback or a reserve area or something like that, you're not allowed to stake. We might have to reject it and have you go back out there to adjust your boundary. If it's minor amounts, like say Slatina, there's a 100-foot 100-foot staking setback in there, If you're 98 feet, that's fine. We can adjust that at the time of survey. Anyway, but like if you're in Lost Creek and there's the 1,600-foot setback, 1,600 from the taps anyway, and you're 400 feet into it, we're probably going to have you go back out there and adjust that. If we cannot figure out what your GPS information is telling us, so if the coordinates are off, the meets and bounds are off, we might have you go back out there and recalculate that, recollect that data. Or if your parcel is not reasonably compact, so it's like you got something that's 4-to-1 or excessive water frontage or something like that, that might kick it out. For acreage, so it's both areas are a minimum of 5 acres, maximum of 20. So if you're like 4.9 acres or something like that, yeah, we can probably adjust that. Or if you're 20 acres or 20.1, we can adjust that down to 20. But if you're at 30 acres, 40 acres, we're going to have you bring that back down again. So, all right. So leasing your parcel. Pretty simple. Get through this pretty quick. So you bring in your application, we'll review that for you. We'll adjudicate that. If we have any questions, we'll contact you. Typically speaking, no news is going to be good news for that. But then at the end, so we're going to accept all those lease applications when you submit them. And then at the end of the staking period, so both staking periods, winners and alternates, we're going to approve all of the applications at one point, and everybody from that staking area is going to go into a lease all at the same time. So that's going to happen in early 2027, probably March 2027 is when that's going to happen. And that's when you're going to get the information about the lease. And at that point, once you're under lease, it is your property to use and do with as you see fit. Anyway, so while under lease, you have the sole and exclusive right to use that property. The only conditions are you cannot use that as a primary residence, and you cannot use that as for commercial purposes during the lease period. While it's under lease, it's your responsibility to maintain the brush and flag lines while it's there. And you can use it. You can even build a cabin on there. However, with some caveats, if you are going to be building or developing a lease, I strongly encourage you to put whatever improvements towards the interior of your parcel, so not up against the boundaries. Because if you're right up on the Slatina, Kuskokwim, something like that, and you're pushing that 100-foot boundary, if that surveyor determines that the ordinary high water mark is 20 foot back, if your cabin is now within that outside of your parcel or within that easement along your property boundary, we cannot approve that parcel. We're going to have you move that parcel before we can sell you that parcel, or before we can even approve the survey. So make it, build a little bit further back, build a little bit more in towards the interior. I also recommend that if you're going to be building anything, that you build it on a temporary foundation, make it mobile. So if necessary, if you need to move it one way or the other, you can drag it 10, 15, 20 feet, off to the side, or just wait until after the parcel's surveyed and where where everything's at. All right. So while under lease, you're going to be making payments toward the parcel. You're going to be paying a survey deposit, appraisal deposit, and you're going to be paying an annual lease fee. And during that time, we're gonna survey it, appraise it, and then you'll have the opportunity to purchase it. So the breakdown for how those payments work. So if you stake a large parcel in Slatina, which is, that's going to be the highest survey cost of that. So that's kind of the high end over here. So you could be paying as much as a little over $7,700 during the lease period. So that's going to include 3 years worth of your $240 lease fee, plus your survey deposit of $6,500, which is it's a max of $6,500 for Slatina. Lost Creek is just a little bit lower than that, I think, for the survey deposit estimate. And then both of them are going to have a $500 appraisal deposit. Neither one of these areas are within a borough, so you don't have to worry about taxes. So the way that breaks up is, so $60 per quarter for the lease. Your survey deposit basically divided by 12 is what you're going to be paying quarterly on that. And then appraisal deposit is $42 per quarter. So you're going to be looking at up to about $644 for that. So the vast majority of them are going to be a little bit under that, but figure around $600 per quarter, every 3 months for that. So during that time, we're going to have the parcel surveyed. So a surveyor is going to go out there. They're going to locate your parcel. They're going to put monuments in the ground, at all 4 corners, measure the distance and direction, and they're going to come out with a survey plat. So when they're out there in the field, so they're going to be out in the field for a limited period of time when they're out there locating all the parcels. And if they identify anything, surprising that they need to adjust a parcel, they're going to let us know and we're going to contact you. So Minor adjustments. I mean, if we just need to move something by a foot or two, whatever, that's pretty minor. But if there are any adjustments more than 10% in size, we're going to be contacting you about that. Generally speaking, anytime we have to adjust something, we're going to contact you. So like if you're, say, for instance, 20.1 acres, all right, do you want to move corner number 2 or corner number 3? How do you want to adjust that? But if we contact you about that when the surveyors are out there in the field, please, please, please get back to us as soon as possible. They're out there for a very limited period of time, but we want to make sure that we're getting you what you want. So we need to reply to them with your preference as quickly as possible. So they're going to survey that. They're going to come out with this plat. And then they're going to map it out. It's going to show all of the parcel boundaries. It's going to show any of the reservations, the easements, setbacks, anything that may apply to the parcel. And this is a list of the common ones. Some of these are not necessarily going to apply to the areas this year, but every parcel is going to have a 30-foot interior parcel boundary. If you're staked over a section line or adjacent to it, you're going to have a section line easement. So it's 50 foot either side of the section line. And then there's going to be a 60-foot easement either side of any existing trails that are, existing in use at the time of staking. And then, I don't think we have to worry about public water bodies in any of the areas. But if you are staked up to, say, next to an oxbow in Slatina or something like that, that turns out it's 5 acres or larger, 5 acres in size or larger at the time of survey. If you're up to it, that's going to be a 50-foot public access easement along that. All right. So all of these easements are going to apply during the lease period. So when you get that lease, it's going to say that you're subject to this, 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 and this, and it should be the exact same ones on the survey plat once that comes in. So you will have, you'll basically get your survey plat. It'll come to the, to Fairbanks, Anchorage offices, wherever these are located, whatever state office. We're going to ask you to come in, review that survey plat, and then sign off on the survey. So, indicating that you, as the lessee of this parcel, this matches what your lease interest is. So again, please be diligent about coming in and signing that, reviewing that, and signing that in a timely manner. So we need to, since we have people throughout the state, we're going to have to mail that survey plat between Fairbanks and Anchorage, Soldotna, wherever it is that we're going to be, to make sure we get all those signatures. And we have a limited time to get that done. So please come in pretty quickly after we contact you to come and approve that.
And it'll be the last year of the lease period, most likely, and there'll be kind of a deadline, like a month, something like that. So there's definitely plenty of time to do it.
Awesome. All right. So once everybody signs it, then we are going to record that plat. And then once it's recorded, the parcel will be appraised. All right. So this is the appraisal process. All right. So we have that fact sheet that is in the, in that staking packet on the online resources that show how this appraisal process works. But in a nutshell, the base appraisal for both of these areas has already happened. So what they did is they looked at the land, and based on the characteristics of the land, they have identified like a key parcel that meets certain criteria for each of these areas and appraised that value. So, land of a certain size within a certain amenities is worth X amount of money. So in the case of Lost Creek, it is all the same key parcel because it's pretty uniform throughout the area. In Soldotna, however, Soldotna has 3 key differences. So there's 3 key parcels. So there's water frontage along the setback, as it were, of the Kuskokwim River, frontage along the setback from the Soldotna or First Fork Soldotna River, and then an interior parcel. So one that's 330 feet or more away from that, right? So they set up a key parcel. And so in the case of Soldotna, so the key parcel A is going to be one of those Kuskokwim setback frontage parcels that's 10 acres in size, or Soldotna, one that's 10 acres in size, or one of those remote parcels, second tier parcel, that's 20 acres in size. So all of that assumes that, that parcel, that key parcel is going to have access from the, from the Kuskokwim River, access from the Soldotna River, access overland from one of those. It's going to have, typical buildable area. It's going to have typical amenities for view, drainage, that sort of thing. Anyway, so they're going to take a look at your parcel and they're going to make adjustments up or down based on what that is, what your parcel is relative to that. So they're going to look at that survey, the parcel as it is surveyed. And so if that key parcel A was 10 acres in size, and yours is 12 acres in size, right? The larger the parcel, the lower the per acreage cost anyway is going to be. So they're going to make a slight adjustment down. So you're going to be paying 90% of the per acre cost instead of 100%, right? Or if you stake this, say, for instance, a 5-acre parcel, you're going to be paying a little bit more per acre than you would for a 10-acre parcel. So they're going to make those adjustments based on that. So the key thing is that, so this, and I apologize, it's going to be a little hard to see, but these are the base appraisal available on the website. And we have examples if you want to take a look at this, but you will get a appraisal report similar to this anyway for your parcel when it's done. And it's going to show all those criteria. So in this case, this is from, I think, Lake Louise East anyway here. But so in this case, the parcel is being appraised against the base appraisal here. The access is the same. Anyway, the amenities are the same. The buildable area is the same. So it gets basically, the adjustment is 1. Everything is the same on that one. The only difference on this one is that this one was a 8-acre parcel, whereas the key parcel is 5. So there's a slight downward adjustment for the per acre cost. So it's 0.84, I think it says. Anyway, on that one. So all in all, anyway, your parcel is going to be appraised pretty close to whatever that key parcel is with whatever acreage adjustment. If you find that perfect spot, whatever on this Latina River that, or in Lost Creek, that is a 100% buildable area. It's completely flat. You've got a 360-degree panoramic view of, Denali and Russia from your front door, whatever. It is the most perfect Valhalla parcel. You might go up 10% based on that, right? If you stake 10 acres of swampland, anyway, that is completely unbuildable, anyway, on there, and there's like a small little fraction of buildable area, you might go down 10, 20%, in your value, something like that. So the point being is stake whatever is valuable to you anyway, and whatever that is, and you should be pretty close to that base appraisal, amount. It's going to come in pretty close that with minor adjustment to that key parcel. All right. So you'll get this base appraisal information along with a purchase packet anyway, in which you can actually purchase your parcel anyway, and you have some options. So when you get that, you can either pay for it outright, anyway, pay for your parcel outright, or you can enter into financing for your parcel anyway at your discretion, or you can choose not to pay for it if you would like to. But and we'll cover that one in a second. So if you for purchasing your parcel, you are going to be paying for the appraised fair market value of that parcel minus whatever you paid during that survey deposit during the lease period for that survey deposit. The appraisal deposit in the lease fee does not come off the final purchase price, just the survey deposit. So that we'll say, I think it was $6,500 on the upper end. From that will come off after, I think it was 80% roughly.
Yeah, it's about 80% of that money ends up going towards the principal of the parcel you purchased. So the survey is paid for by the state of Alaska. But so that those payments that you make over those 3 years, most of that's going to go towards your principal.
Yeah. All right. And so when you get that, so you can pay it off outright, or you can enter into a contract for the purchase of it. If it's less than $1,000, then you have to pay it off outright. Anything more than $1,000, you can finance for up to 20 years, depending on the final principal amount. So once you pay it off, you get it's fee simple title to the surface estate. State retains the mineral rights with it, but there's no post patent restrictions, so you're not required to prove up on it. There's no limit to the amount of time that you can sell it, whatever. Of note, anyway, so during the lease period, you are not allowed to transfer the lease outside of something like a court order or something like that. But once it goes into contract, for purchase contract, you could assign the parcel, as it were. So if it's under contract, you do an assignment of contract. You can't just outright sell it to somebody else. You have to go through DNR to assign that to somebody. But that can only happen once you get into the contract phase. But anyway, so for purchasing it, you can currently finance for up to 20 years. There, in the future that might be extended out to 30, depending on the principal amount. But right now it's up to 20 years. The terms on that is 3% above the prime rate as published in the Wall Street Journal on the first day of the month in which the contract is written, which is to say that it's 3% above prime, whatever that is, roughly 3 years from now. Anyway, so right now I think we're like 9.5% is our current rate anyway. So, but yeah, it goes up and down. It's been dropping as of late, but 3 years from now, who knows what it's going to be. So you can enter into the purchase price, or you can enter into purchase. In order to do so, it requires a 5% down payment of whatever that remaining principal amount is. So on the right side of the screen, to give you an example, it's the fair market value minus that survey deposit. So for instance, anyway, if if your parcel is appraised at 18,500, if your survey costs $3,500, anyway, you would owe $15,000. So you could finance that up for up to 15 years in that case, right? So you just need to pay 5%, down of that $1,500 or $15,000, excuse me, in that case. All right. So if you choose not to purchase the parcel, you can continue to lease the parcel for up to 5 additional years at $1,200 per year. However, that $1,200 does not come off the purchase price. If you do not purchase that parcel within 5 years, it just reverts back to the state anyway, and we get the parcel back, and you lose your interest in that parcel. But it does give an option if you choose not to purchase it at that time. So, all right. At this point, is there any questions about anything I've covered, from preparing to stake, going out there and staking it, collecting all your materials, collecting all the information about the parcel, filling out the lease application, applying for it, purchasing it, etc.? Nothing? Okay. All right. So we are going to move into the staking areas at this point. All right. So we're going to start out with we'll start out with Lost Creek. That's at the top here. So a little bit about Lost Creek, just a brief overview. So currently the access to Lost Creek is from the Dalton Highway. And so, but the access is going to be changing on that here, in theory, around 2029. So the Department of Transportation has been looking at, for years about a reroute of the first 7 miles of the Dalton Highway. So the plan is they're going to start the Dalton Highway a couple miles to the west, and they're kind of going to wrap around the big drainage, around there, around Lost Creek, there, and connect back in about 7 miles up on the Dalton Highway. So their plan right now is about 1.7 miles into the staking area. You have that is where they're going to stop it. So just a little bit past the current "Welcome to the Dalton Highway" sign, or whatever that is where the road's going to end. So the plan is they're going to close the road on that, which ultimately the plan is they're going to remove any of the drainage infrastructure on there. So removing the culverts, all that kind of stuff from there. Anyway, and so the road is still going to remain largely in place, but without any of that drainage structure. So, and they're also no longer going to be doing any maintenance of the road from that point. So, so no more paving, fixing potholes, any of that kind of stuff. But it should still be pretty readily available for access via ATV or something like that. Anyway, down there. In fact, it'd be a really nice ATV for that matter. Anyway, but yeah, so that's they're proposing to start that somewhere around 2029. But the Dalton Highway is still in place now, so I mean there's still going to be that 300-foot setback from the Dalton, as we were previously discussing. So everything around the Lost Creek staking area, it's all generally allowed uses. All state land within the area is open to generally allowed uses. So there are a handful of trails within Lost Creek right now where people are accessing their parcels. So please be cautious of that. Anyway, when you're selecting a parcel to stake. There are no trails that we've stated you cannot stake across within the staking area, but if you do, if there's a trail there that's active and in use, you will be subject to a 60-foot easement from that trail. So 30-foot on either side. So within there is the taps right of way within there. So there's a 1,600-foot setback from the taps. So you can access across the tap, so you can take an ATV and drive directly across the pipeline there. You're just not allowed to drive along the pipeline without permission from Alaska Pipeline Service Company. If you chose to develop access up in there, develop a trail, like harden a trail or something like that, build a road up in there, it would require a permit from the Alaska Pipeline Service Company from that, and also DNR as well. Anyway, for the state land portion, but that would require additional approval to do that. So with the staking area, so the winners period starts March 6th. So 8 a.m. March 6th when they can start staking. And then we're going to start accepting lease applications on the following Monday. But you have up until 4 p.m. on July 20th to complete your staking there. So
there's just something funny happening. There's a guy that's not important, but he's definitely rapping into his phone because it's a cool room he's in. I can see that.
We got local wildlife issues here in the library. So anyway, all right. So after July 20th, if you've not used your staking authorization, not staked a parcel, completed it and been, had that approved, and completed, paid for, and stamped as complete by 4 p.m. July 20th, you lose that staking authorization, and then staking authorizations are going to go onto the alternates, and their staking period is going to start July 24th and run through September 28th. All right, so a little bit of information about the area. It is a limited fire management option, which for those folks in Lost Creek, that means it has the lowest priority for fire suppression. So again, it's there. Whatever the fire management option, there's no guarantee that you'll have fire suppression efforts in there, but it is definitely going to be the onus is going to be on you to ensure that that you create that defensible space and make it as easy as possible for firefighters to defend your investment. It's within Game Management Unit 20B, and the state of Alaska is a plating authority, which just means we don't have to go through anybody else to approve the survey for that. There is a number of private properties within the area up along the Dalton Highway and a couple back on the other side of the taps. So make sure you're referencing those survey plats and avoiding those private property taking, and be on the lookout for access to those properties there for those access easements. All right, so there are a couple of setbacks and reserved areas within there. So there's a 300-foot staking setback from the center line of the Dalton Highway. So you just need to make sure you are up to 300 feet from the Dalton Highway or 330 feet beyond the Dalton. So 300 feet from the Dalton or 630 feet from the Dalton. And then likewise from the taps, it's a 1,600-foot staking setback. So you need to be 1,620 feet from the taps or 1,930 feet or more from the taps. All right, and then there are 4 other reserved areas, those squares within there. So those are reserved areas, so you're not allowed to stake within those areas, but there is no requirement to be up to or 330 feet. As long as you're outside of them, it's totally fine. And those coordinates for those are going to be listed on that coordinate map anyway. Are
they staked? Is it obvious?
No, it's not. There's nothing out there marking them on the ground. So yeah, you just need to get the coordinates off that to see just where they are.
Unless it's actually there's a monument there, that would only be the edge of the old parcels.
Right. Yeah. All right. So any questions about Lost Creek?
On the Dalton, is it 300 feet from actual center line or 300 feet from platted center line?
From the actual center line is what we're measuring right now, which I have no idea exactly on the Dalton where it's. I mean, if it follows pretty closely to the center line or not, but for our purposes, it's center line from the developed highway.
Okay.
Any other questions on Lost Creek? Okay, Salatna. All right, so for the Salatna, summer access is going to be by principally by boat, potentially by float plane to the Kuskokwim. Probably not along the Salatna. Probably a little too twisty and windy for that one. It's going to be about 53 miles from McGrath and like much further if you're going from, I can't remember what the guy was saying it was out of Bethel, but anyway, it's a ways. What was that? Okay, yeah, it's a long ways anyway out there. But yeah, winter access is going to be principally by snow machine, when conditions are appropriate for it. So the entire area around Salatna is going to be state land except for across the easterly boundary. So along that east boundary, there's that large kind of half-mile setback from there because that's again where it meets up with federal land right there. So they have their own equivalent of generally allowed uses, which I'm not sure exactly what that is. But within the area, everything is open to generally allowed uses. So you can operate a off-road vehicle up to 1,500 pounds, on or off an established easement. So you can cut in a trail using hand tools, including a chainsaw, something like that. But so all the access and everything around there is subject to generally allowed uses. The staking period is going to be the same. Winners have until July 20th to complete, and alternates until September 28th. So Salatna is broken up. There's 2 different fire management options. It's going to be full and modified. So full has the second highest priority after critical for fire suppression. Modified is just beyond that. But again, that's all going to be relative based on whatever resources are available. So if it's a big fire year, a lot of fires going on in the area, even if it's full fire management option, they might not get to that area to suppress it if it's a big fire year. So it's dependent on whatever is available in the area. So again, there's no guarantee of protection. So it's up to the owner to be fire wise and prepare your parcels. It's within Game Management Unit 19D in that one, and again, unorganized borough. There's a handful of private properties, principally just on the lower Slatina and right there on the Kuskokwim River. And then there's those three 100-foot setbacks. So from the Kuskokwim, Slatina, First Fork, Slatina, and then basically the easterly half mile of the project area is a setback. So again, with those setbacks, you have to be either up to this the setback, so 100 foot from ordinary high water mark, or 430 feet from ordinary high water mark. So up to or 330 feet from that setback. All right. Any questions on Slatina? Ready. Well, any questions about anything that we have covered at all today? All right, so that wraps up us dumping a whole lot of information on you. So for those here that are present in the room, we've got a questionnaire, if you'd be so kind as to fill that out and let us know how we did. For folks online, any information or feedback you'd give us, we'd definitely appreciate. And we appreciate you coming to join us for the workshop here. So if you have any questions from now up and through the staking period or beyond, let us know. We're here as a resource for you. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right, and I'll hang on the line here in case anybody thinks of anything, and otherwise, yeah, let us know. Thank you very much.